And here we are, live chat. This is one of my part of the animal totem here. And welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. And I am your Sensei Al Bob, your griot, your storyteller. And what does a griot do? It tells you a story so you can understand, right? And I'm not, a politician. I'm not a banker. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a priest. I've been schooled to be a priest. I've been schooled to be a rabbi, but I don't represent because those are religions that I have an opinion that most religions are a business plan, tax free, and and science is a religion, right? It's a belief structure. When I went and took my first statistical analysis demographic course, but it was basically a precursor for every element of statistical analysis, whether it was scientific. I mean, it's all supposed to be scientific. It's supposed to have a control anyway. Um, anyway, that teacher said to us, "Hey, kids, I am going to teach you how to lie with numbers." Now, I loved math when I was a young man. I loved geometry because it was, you made these things called proofs. Kind of showed you that you were proving something, right? And you could see it, on the paper, on the graph paper, right? And the only real math is geometry, Euclidean, right? Because all of, at least the sciences that I was coming from, physics and chemistry and electrical engineering, all were really kind of Euclidean geometry. Trigonometry was kind of smoke and mirrors. Algebra was a joke because what they were doing, just like statistics, they came from a premise and they wanted to prove it. So they developed a way of proving it. Right? Hey, Zero. Hey, Twitch. Yogurt and salsa. Oh, my summertime drink. And I was talking to a friend of mine he's a musician, so he's tied into very interesting things. And he was going on about how the real problem isn't like carbon, isn't like us or our carbon footprint. It's the metal footprint. Yep, trigonometry is smoke and mirrors. Hey, and Eldon, how you doing, bud? Your live video isn't showing up on my subscription feed. YouTube doesn't like you. Yeah, I'm pretty much. What happened was, I don't know. Back when I had that, I used to always do my live chats off my phone, and once I kind of, and they started contacting me on my Gmail saying, your shows are pretty amazing because not many people are subscribing, but a lot of people are watching, and they're watching for a long period of time, which is something that they really like. And so they basically said, we would love to support you, put you on the front of the algorithm, get millions, you could be rich and famous, and we give you a lot of money, but we want to own your content. I mean, not just kind of control it through their rules, but own your content. And that was like, really? You want to own, Sensei Al Bob? How sweet. And I said, no. And they couldn't believe. I said, what? And they go, we'll make you rich and famous. You don't want to be rich and famous? And I said, no. Because all I care about is my cadre. All I care about is their integrity to be the pebble in the pond. So say we all. And they just were like, what? And they really tried. And they started sending me checks for $20. And they said, here, sign this check and we'll, and put your, routing number and your checking account number, and we'll start putting money straight into that account. But once you do, we own you. And I said, sorry, no. And I said, like, for $20, I don't think so. And they said, oh, no. This is just so we'll wire you in and we'll start giving you a lot of money. I said, no. And then they came back and said, well, we know you have no money, that you're basically a homeless guy. Don't you want to go back to the lifestyle you used to have? And I said, no. All I'm concerned about is my cadre. And so they said, well, okay. And that about a week after the last real hard sell they gave me, that's when they, out of the blue, said, listen, you don't have 1,000 subscribers, so you can't make your live chats on your phone anymore. You got to do it off the laptop. And I have to say that John was really great. He got me this. It's called a Chrome. It has no hard drive. It has nothing in it. All it has is a Wi-Fi, and I can get a hold of the Wi-Fi and go on the internet. It's totally for going on the internet, but not putting anything anywhere. Now, if you know what you're doing, you can put it up on the cloud, blah, blah, blah. And again, that's Google wanting to own and have everything you do. So I got this device, but I still use it as my phone, and I don't. And they started saying, don't you want to have, YouTube Prime? And again, we'll give you, yes, we don't have to own your stuff. We'll just help you. And I said, no. And that's when, certain people were being dropped out and blocked, and I didn't do any of this stuff, right? And that's why I'm moving towards developing the traveling video art circus, and that I will be placing this information in all the different universities that I go to, and get the students in those universities to be a society, a freely inquiring society. Freely meaning open, no bounds, no wrenches, right? Freely inquiring to try and understand society, meaning a group, just like we're the cadre, right? Anyway, so that's the plan. And off there in the deep green, I found a number of interesting folks who have talent in all kinds of things. And they're really interested in doing this. And you guys, I keep saying, come on, let's get the band on the road. And they're all my famous artist, scientist friends who, they can't go on the road. They're as old as I am. And they have families and kids and mortgages, and they're still being professors and artists and galleries and stuff. But they all said, oh, we'd love to perform. We'd love to lecture. So that's why it's going to be the video. I mean, they can go on Skype from their house, from their classroom, from their whatever, and do a lecture, do a show, do a performance, do whatever. And it'll go into the internet, into this, website. And all you folks who are really tricky with the website stuff, you can assist, because I've got 3 or 4 people that I'm nearby who are working on building these things. And we're going to try and have a website, a curriculum, and starting to contact universities by mid-August. So that's where this project is. So I'm thinking, I'm still writing novels, and I'm still, writing about the alternative aesthetic, because as I am observing what's going on in the body politic, it's coming. I keep saying there's a window of opportunity, right? First it was 40 days and 40 nights about a year ago. And then around May is when I started saying, there's a window of opportunity in the next 18 months. And for about 5, May, June, and now it's been that 1 month. Right now, when August shows up, oh, look, something's happening to the little thumbs and the heads are bouncing back and forth. That's usually a sign that someone on the higher level is doing something. But anyway, um, right now we're at 17 months and counting, right? And it's basically tied to the election, right? But we have this window where we can really do something interesting. Okay. Yep. Trigonometry is smoke and mirrors. Says 0, LOL. He loves us all. Aiden, I'm back to sleep now. And you remember, gang, the beauty of this is you can go watch this any old time you want. You guys, because this scene is, the cadre is everywhere, in Asia and Europe, and it's all over the place. So you're all in different time spans, and yes, so that's the beauty of it. And you look at how many people are actually watching this. It's 40,000 views, and on the Gmail, I get a lot of response from people saying, listen, my work, my family, my this, I can't watch it when you do it because I'm on the other side of the earth, but I do go back and watch them. And I watch all the old ones, and I get, it's truly amazing because, and I keep telling you guys, don't believe anything I say because it has to come from your heart, right? You have to have faith, and you should never believe anything. But if you feel it and you feel it's right, then, right? And being a grid, I tell you a story that you go, and it gets inside of you and it bounces around. And that's where you make up your own mind and you go do your own homework and you connect the dots, Twitchy bucks. And Twitchy, your Twitchy bucks are probably as valuable or more valuable than the greenbacks because Federal Reserve notes are like less. Once people realize that they're worthless, we're gonna be Germany, 1923. And people go, how did the Germans swallow Adolf Hitler? Well, that's because Mr. Rothschild basically through the Treaty of Versailles, thanks to the brothers, put Germany into poverty the day they signed that. They had to have reparations and they had to destroy their industry. No one had jobs. And then they were given democracy, which is great if things are humming good. But if there's discourse, democracy is not good. Look at us. We're the biggest economy at the moment. And everyone's got a job and it's all, the stock market's through the roof and everybody's happy. They're all screaming at each other, right? You terrible commie, you terrible liberal, you terrible, despicable, Republic. It's really what we have at this moment is that we are being chumped, Donald Trump. We're being chumped. And he's being, poor Donnie, he's being set up. And, he's going to take the worst fall. And he's going to make Richard Nixon look like a, saint. And, Nixon, you have to realize, Nixon brought in Medicaid, brought in Medicare, brought in the EPA, brought in amazing things that, he saved, half of the virgin environment of our country. Now, he did it for all the wrong reasons, meaning he did it because he took us off the gold standard because his, handlers and the people above him wanted that gold. I mean, all the gold is leaving this, since the Anunnaki turned us, took some monkeys out of the trees and turned us into the ugly bags of water. We have been their slaves to dig up gold, right? And to fight wars for Aries, addiction to chaos and etc. And and that's why we had this amazing 17 months of opportunity, right? Because Donnie has been doing stuff that his handlers, his owners can't believe. They wanted him to, go in and bomb Venezuela. He didn't do it. They wanted him to bomb, Syria. He didn't do it. He was pulling people out of Syria, out of here, out of there, which is the right thing to do. Go watch Tabby Gabbard. She's running for president. She's from Hawaii. She was an Army major. She experienced the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. She knows what it's about. She's been in Congress for 2 terms. She's been on all the committees. She's got access to the real information, as good as it gets. And so she went over, when they were about to go into war with Syria, she went to Syria herself on her own nickel and looked at what was going on, right? And she's going to all these places on her own nickel to see what's going on. And she said, no, And what, she has issues. I can understand why certain people don't, meaning she's a person who, I bet you dollars to donuts, I'll have to look up her birthday, but I bet you she's a Virgo. Because she's always right, and she's telling you she's always right. Now, people don't like to hear that. And she has her own, agenda, and that's called peace. Well, people who are trans or who are Black like me, or women who, want this, or, any of those little groups, not to say that their issues aren't valid, but the real deal, like when I was involved in politics in the 60s and 70s, one thing I saw was that, the guys who were just against the anti-war, they couldn't care about, 2 hoots about Black people or poor people or this. And all of those, and I tried to get people to come together. And then what I saw was when Martin Luther King, when he was just talking about, when Black babies and White babies can go hand in hand, and, that was fine. But when he started having the Poor People's March, when he started talking about Vietnam being a class struggle, that's when he got, whacked, And Jesse Jackson, who wasn't even there when Martin got whacked, came back, and there's all these pools, the bodies have been gone for a couple hours, and he was pretty well known for wearing a white turtleneck and a sports jacket. And he took off his white turtleneck and he dabbed it in the pools of Martin's blood, and then went on in front of TV because he was like one of the spokespeople, a press guy. And I was holding him in my arms, and he said, "Jesse, keep hope alive." I mean, come on. And from that day on, he was just a sock puppet, right? And I used to live up in Harlem, and I used to, as a little boy, listen to Malcolm X because my grandma loved going to the park, and these guys would put out a great spread, and we'd go and listen to Malcolm speak and other people speak and dance and talk and have a generally great time and eat a lot of good food. And he used to call this place a temple, not a mosque. The mosque was upstairs where you prayed, but the temple was for the people. And they would you didn't have to be a Muslim. If you were hungry, if you were sick, if you needed a place to stay, they would take care of it without making you swear to Islam, right? But if you wanted to go to the mosque, it was upstairs. They had a school and a library, and it was quite an interesting place. And they dressed people up so they could go on job interviews. And anyway, he went off to the Hajj, and he saw everybody there, whites, blacks, yellows, every flavor of human being, and he realized it wasn't black. And he really realized, because he had been talking to Martin, and Martin was starting to do the Poor People's March, and he started to realize that the whole race thing was a smokescreen for the real deal of class, right? And if you get into, and you got to look at who It's always follow the money. Who paid Marx to write all that stuff? I mean, he was sitting around, he was from Germany and he was hanging out in England. It was Mr. Rothschild paying his bills. Rothschild wanted economic foil for capitalism so there could be a yes, no, black, white kind of thing to keep people distracted. And there is no such thing as communism or socialism. There never was. But now they're calling, the girls, socialist, communist, calling Bernie a social. And Bernie went along with it, meaning Bernie's part of the inside crowd. I mean, he should have been the Democratic candidate. He won. But if you read the WikiLeaks papers, the Democratic Party made sure that he won California. But, and the only person who could lose to Donald Trump was Hillary Clinton, because most people really didn't like her. And she had 40 years of getting lots of people. And then what did she do? She called half the country a basket of deplorables. And then the most main states of the swing, there are only 17 states that matter. California, New York, they always vote this way or that way. It's pretty much a set match. But there's 17 swing states, and you can win those, electoral votes by winning by, 20, 30,000 votes. And that's what Donald Trump won by in all of those states to get their electoral votes to become president. Yes, Hillary probably did get the 3 million votes more than Donnie, but it's he goes, it's a rigged game. Well, it is. And it was rigged in his because, the powers that shouldn't be and the hidden hand wanted him so they could take this country apart. And here comes the story. So I sold the school to John in 2015 in September. No, it might have been 2014. And it took some time for me to move my stuff out and John moved his stuff in. And the month before the closing, John had to get out of his house so he could sell it so he could buy this place. And he says, I have no place to stay. I said, well, John, you can move in. He goes, but I want, and I said, no, just come on, move your stuff in, not a problem. I didn't even charge him any rent. Just come on, do it. So he did. And he moved all the stuff and blah, 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 blah. And I was moving all my stuff out. But that enabled him to say, well, you can stay here too, right? Because John is kind of this, he's, a Libra. He if I'm doing this, then I'm going to do that. Anyway. So I stay there, and I'm still pretty sick, but I'm getting better, getting better. And I was obviously way weaker, way older, so he could feel good about being him. He's young, he's virile, and he's working out, and da-da-da-da-da. And so, and his family was still here, And so, he was here about 1.5 years before his family split to Texas. And he never went to see them. They were just 6 miles away. He went to see him twice, and it's because I put him in a car and drove him there and said, we're going to go to we're going to go shopping for food at the co-op. Oh, well, the co-op, we're going to go to the co-op. Because he hated Kroger's. And Kroger's is not a bad place. They actually pay their people $15 an hour, give them health care. They hire every kind of, people who in wheelchairs, who, every kind of, who could never get hired anyplace. Kroger's hires those folks, right? And they don't make them dress a certain way. It was like the Kroger's where we are. There was a trans guy there, right? And when he first started, he had rainbow hair. He dressed like a clown, and but he did his job pretty well. He's a smart guy, right? So anyway, today, he is the manager of the richest, most expensive, the Kroger's that makes the most money for Kroger's in Roanoke. And we have a class Kroger structure. There is where I go, that Kroger's, I call it used to be a Harris Teeter's, and Harris Teeter's trying to move in here, and they made a deal, Harris Teeter wouldn't come here and Kroger's wouldn't go into Harris Teeter's neck of the woods. And Harris Teeter's made this. It's beautiful. It's like a church, a cathedral to consumption, because it's this geodesic kind of dome, all made out of glass. It's like unbelievably sunny, and the ceilings are like 30 feet high, right? And they light it really well, like a theater. And they have all the best food. They have a really good catering place where they make it, you can get anything you want. They make it fresh every day. They make pizzas, you name it, they make it. And their vegetables are really good, and the highest quality, and everything is of the highest quality, and it's cheaper. So that's the rich people Kroger's, right? Then they, over at Tanglewood and Vinton and Southeast, they have the middle class, where they don't have as good a quality. I mean, everything there is good, but it's not like uber rich people stuff, right? And it's a little more expensive. And then in places like Towers, there's 3 or 4 poor people's Southeast. It's the poor people stuff, right? And like the cans that fall off the shelf in the rich people place, they put them and they bring them to the poor people's guys, and they charge them what it would cost to pick up that can, put it in a box, put it in a truck, take it over to the poor guys. So the can of spaghetti sauce in the rich guy's place costs $1.25. That same can in the poor people's costs $1.90, right? So, but the level of quality, and like I said, the way they treat their staff is, really pretty good. And but if you go to the co-op, it's like that same can that has the dent in it cost $4 at the co-op. It's like unfreaking believable, and that is the real. All of these things are reflections of what's going on in our materialist society, and part of my job is setting up websites. Oh, well, come on, baby. You know where I live. And if you ever get a space for me, I'd love to come down to the coast, especially in September when the majority of the crowd leaves, and it's really not super hot or muggy, but really nice. I'd love to come visit. Maybe we jump in, I drive down there, and then we drive down and go see your husband in Florida. We all meet up in Florida and find things to do and enjoy Florida for the winter, because, man, I can't spend another winter here. I'm trying to get this thing off the ground by then, that I'd have the circus on the road by September. That's what I'm working for. And I'm trying, as Yoda would say, don't try, do, Yeah. So John totally hates Kroger's because his parents are there, and he thinks Kroger's is telling his parents what he's buying, right? So anyway, so what I do, I pretty much just eat vegetables, and I'm getting pretty good at being a gummy boy. And if you want to buy really healthy vegetables, one of the best things you can do is buy frozen vegetables, because they pick it at its height of its freshness and freeze it with liquid nitrogen, put it in a plastic bag, seal it up, put it in a freezer, right? So that vegetable is, at its peak, and it's in an environment where it can't be, soiled or contaminated. Whereas you can have a really great organic product, but if you're doing it on mass production, what happens is, so there's the organic farmer, and he's growing organic stuff. And if he's doing it for a large, entity, that entity comes and gets the food right there at the farmer. I mean, they bring their own pickers and their own boxes and their own trucks, and they put it in there and they take it off to their warehouse, and then they transport it to the retailer. Well, from that point of going from the organic farm to that when you buy it, it's no longer organic because they spray those trucks, right? So there aren't bugs in them. They buy boxes that have stuff that kill bugs, and they throw the organic food in it because the law has nothing about the transportation, right? Because they want to get the max out of that plant and have it be able to look relatively pretty good for as long as possible. So they don't want bugs eating it, right? So, um, the co-op buys it from those wholesalers. So, and the other thing, even if your food is being grown at a farm that is, certified organic, um, unless they're growing it in a greenhouse, the chemtrails, the poison rain, the ultraviolence of the sunlight is turning that food into poison, even if it is, grown organically. And, the chemical companies took the organic farmers to court in the 90s under the Bill Clinton years. And the Supreme Court said anything grown in dirt can be called organic, and, good old Monsanto, paid off the judges to say that one. Just like the Supreme Court said, money is free speech. So you can have unlimited money in politics, and you don't even have to say where it came from. Have these PACs, and it's like a slush fund. And why there's so many Democrats running for president? Because they get to keep the money that they gather up for this presidential election. They can use it on their other, when they go back to run for Senate or Congress or dog catcher, they can use it. And to run for any office, you're gonna have to buy some cars. You're gonna have a house where people can stay. I need this and I need that. And that's why there are 25 or 26 folks, because it's part of the gravy train. So we're at this window of opportunity, right? And Donald Trump is doing it. He is like heaven sent, because he is the slimiest. He is no more slimy, no more corrupt, no more criminal, but he is, and I don't know if I could say he's no more delusional, but if you're running, in national elections, you're pretty much delusional. If you're not a clone, I swear Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, and I mean, just if you watch them physically, if you went through hours and hours and hours of video of them in office doing things, saying things, you can see that one day they look this way and the next day they look that way. And everything that Downey says, oh, it's a rigged game. Well, it is a rigged game. Oh, it's all fake news. Well, it is. I mean, there's only 7 corporations that run all the media, right? And the thing about Tulsi Gabbard, so she's really pretty, because she was a soldier and saw what, it cost. She didn't want to have any wars. So she is like, that's her number one thing. And like when she was at the, you know, when the guys were talking to each other, they hardly asked her a question, and she got maybe 5 to 8 minutes during that debate, right? But what she did, and they tried to trick her up. No, she took them to the woodshed, right? And that one guy, no, we gotta stay in Afghanistan because the Taliban bombed the World Trade Center. And she goes, no, buddy, the Taliban had nothing to do with 9/11. That was Al Qaeda. Wow. And then she he was so stupid, and he opened the door for her. She then said, well, one of the reasons why there was no heroin being sold is because the Taliban were the only crew in 200 years that kept the English out and kept them from, growing poppies. And soon as we invaded Afghanistan, we went straight back to growing poppies, and the heroin use went through the roof, right? And so she brought all of that out, and she showed the connection between the banks and the drugs and the military industrial complex. And then they said, oh, okay, that's it. You can't say anything more, right? But she said enough. If you go to Jimmy Dore really loves this lady. And so he always has, you know, uh, her best reel running. But she gets no coverage. And, everyone wants to call her a commie, oh, she's in Putin's pocket, blah, blah, blah. No, because she said this thing, and the girl with the turban said, which she had to apologize. And she basically said the truth. She was talking about APEC, and all those politicians are in APEC's pocket because APEC gives them billions of dollars. But they're not the only ones. K Street is full of people giving our politics. We have the best legislators money can buy, right? But so today was a beautiful day. I got up early, and I went down the hill, and I had breakfast at my place, and I was reading. I'm working on, my The Science of Mind, right, by Ernest Holmes, the definitive edition, a philosophy, a faith, a way of life. And he's kind of very, he talks about every religion, so at least he gives everyone their day. And he is very science oriented, which is pretty much, the name of the book is The Science of Mind. So, I keep saying that your mind is just the squirrel cage of your Rolodex, and it really is nothing. And he's all about the mind. He's all about science. And I say, science is just another religion, because back in the day when Galileo and Mr. Gravity and a few others, Copernicus, were kind of saying, just by looking at, well, it doesn't look like this. And so, and then certain people uncovered ancient scriptures of the Mesopotamian, the Syrians, and also the stuff coming from China and Central and South America were making its way into Europe. Who was bringing that? No one knows. But that information was coming in, and the Roman Empire that had just rebranded itself as the Holy Roman Empire. No. We own everybody, so the science stuff, no. And then when it was pretty hard to debunk science, they said, okay, we're going to pay the scientists to say what we want them to say, and we will own people's souls, and science can talk about nature, the natural movement of things. And it'll be like a watch, right? Nature's like a machine, and the science guys can talk about it that way, which they did, and they still do, So this book, Science of Mind, does not really bring forth, love's, co-creation, but it does in its own kind, because it's like it's almost 3,000 pages long. This guy is a smart, he is definitely, he is a scholastic, but he's as scholarly as any scholastic I've seen. So he actually he tries to give, he must be a Libra, he tries to give everybody, he gives everybody's point of view, which is righteous, So I'm using a lot of what, I'm about the fifth time, and I got every other word underlined. So I'm using a lot of that. I'm going to be quoting a lot of that within the construct of the alternative aesthetic, along with a great deal of the 19th century and 18th century French philosophers, and Plato and Socrates and Mr. Euclid. You should go read. He wasn't just geometry. He was probably the best of all those guys, because he was all about, balancing the equation. So it wasn't all about him, So that's what I'm doing in the next, month and a half, till, mid-August. And I've pretty much done most of my medical stuff. I have another operation, beginning of August. and I'm trying to help 3 grandmas get elected to the Virginia Commonwealth House of Representatives, because all the politics, because we're a Commonwealth, your city, your mayor, your city council, the whatever county you're in, the county commissioner and county, they're irrelevant. They can't, if like the Roanoke, the guys want to change the rules on parking. They have to get permission from the state legislature, right? If they want to change anything about guns or anything, it has to come from the state legislature. So, all these people that I call the usual suspects who run for offices, they all run for mayor and city council, which is really all that is you want to put the hand in the pocket of the people, right? Because pretty much every person on the city council, I've been here 20 years, they were all real estate people, and they were all making sure that they, whatever properties came the way of the city, that they could buy it first for like $10. Like one of the reasons why the big medical monster, which it's good. I mean, it's taking care of me, Carillion, and the South Roanoke folk who were like the Chamber of Commerce. This town used to be transportation, manufacturing, and innovation, which gave everyone who was here, black, white, whatever, a pretty good salary, right? And because all those jobs were kind of union, and there were innovation. There was GE, ITT, Bell Labs, a lot of people doing some pretty cutting edge stuff, and that's why tech is here. And but around the 70s, they put in 581, which is the highway that cut right through the black community and killed it, and started, the town started doing this. And then around 2005, Carillion came in, and those real estate guys sold. I mean, it's just amazing. And so anyway, that's kind of what it. Hey, John, how you doing, buddy?
I guess I'm okay.
Good.
Yeah. Hi.
So, yeah, what's up?
Just drinking water.
Good. Hydrate.
Yeah.
So we're at this window of opportunity. Let's see what your kids have been saying. Part of the job. Yeah, okay. Getting people government funded. Yeah. But you got my email. Yep. Okay. Yep. And my okay. Yep. I saw it. I didn't write it down. So yes, I did see it. So I know it's there. Twitch. Yeah. Well, you're doing good. Vacation, health, and 1175. Yep. No uniforms. Yep. Except an apron. Exactly. There's some good capitalist slave owners, and there's some really bad ones. So, yeah, if that's what happens. So instead of, Kroger competing with Harris Teeter, they bought them. That's the best way. But like I said, they do a pretty good job. They pay their people well, and they hire everybody, and they don't, But that trans guy. He, like I said, he used to have rainbow hair and then super red hair, and then he turned into a librarian. I went there, and I just, he wasn't always standing out there where he normally stood out there. And then when I asked the person behind the customer service, so where's so and so? And this woman who looked like she was 40, but the training guy was probably in his late 20s. Answers me, and I look at him and I go, "My God, that's the training guy." And he's dressed like a librarian. He has a very nice, like dress suit, not pants, but a very nice dress, like below his knees, and a coat, and a very nice, shirt with a nice piece of jewelry. And he's got gray hair, and it's in a bun. And Kroger let him go through his whole transition, right? And
Wow.
it was like, whoa, that's
But
pretty
I
cool.
can't go in there and get organic vegan food.
Sure you can. I got it.
But they're like, look, man, you shouldn't be in here.
No, John, they don't have that kind of voice. It's mostly trannies and every other kind of alternative person is there. No, they're if you're just there to buy something, they're not going to.
I had like a really traumatic experience in Kroger like many years ago.
What happened?
Oh, it's kind of too long to describe, but I guess put simply,
how were you dressed when you went in there? How were you dressed?
I went from being an ethical vegan for most of 14 or 15 years with no meat and no desire to eat meat because I watched the PETA videos of the animals being tortured, and I was like, I just couldn't eat it. And also, when I was in junior high, I saw Faces of Death where they like cut into a cow's head and like it was still alive and stuff, and it was like really horrible and horrific. And I stopped eating meat on my own. No one in my family was a vegetarian. I was like 12, and I saw a pig fetus in a jar in the chemistry room, so I stopped eating pork and bacon. I stopped eating those heavy meats, and I would just eat chicken and turkey starting from when I was about 12 years old. In junior high, they called it.
Yeah.
And then I ate very little meat. And then when I met Danica, she was a vegan in about 2000, in 1999. So in 2000, I became a vegan. Then I had been a vegan so long, and something happened where I didn't get sleep for a few weeks. And it's like like a week or two, like a real whole.
Yeah, but John, we were talking about Kroger's and how they intimidate you there. So what happened in Kroger's? How were you dressed in Kroger's, and what were you doing in Kroger's? Because Kroger's a business. If you just go in there to buy food.
With somebody, it felt like they were controlling my thoughts because I hadn't slept in about a week. And I had this really horrifying experience where I could see these hellish things, like real hell.
In Kroger's?
Yeah, like demonish people and stuff, and really horrific, terrifying things. Like, and so I went into Kroger like a machine. It felt like these big rich people were like putting these white racist man on ideas in my head.
But the manager, and like two of the main managers of that Kroger are black.
And I had to go in there and get
the guy who's in charge of transportation and the internet there. He's black. The king lady there is black.
All heavy meats, whether I wanted to or not, thinking these horrific things.
And Kroger made you do that?
Well, Kroger was like a part of it. They're the biggest grocery store chain in the world.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. And CVS was kind of a part of it too, and I'm still afraid to go get my medicine. I won't get psychiatric meds at CVS, but it's to a safe place now where it's years later where I can just say this stuff. I used to have to keep it all secret for years. No one knew. I couldn't tell anyone, but now I can just say it, and it's like normal and out there now, and I feel normal.
That Kroger's is a satanic, monstrous, hellish place.
Maybe they were part of it. They were under a lot of pressure with having like someone come into office as the president who is literally almost a Muslim, who's Barack Hussein Obama, who literally was raised in Kenya a lot of his life.
He grew up in Hawaii.
supposedly.
Allegedly.
However,
Right.
there are no pictures of him from his childhood online unless they were photoshopped. There's no video. No video. So I'm just saying, I think he is Osama bin Laden with a nose job. With a nose job. He took that pointy nose, has the same eyebrows and eyes, same lips that look like dark fish lips.
I actually think Obama is a clone. I think he came out of a test tube.
They said he's the enemy. They want some liberal. Let's put this guy in there. Give it a try. It was evil enough. They gave him a try. Didn't work. I don't know if it's true or not. Maybe that's crazy. Probably because I didn't sleep for a long time, so I'm not taking the blame for it if it's true or not. I don't care. I don't care about this stuff. I go out there and don't ever have to worry about anything political anymore. It just feels normal. But if you take a picture of Osama bin Laden and put it, see, if I did a video on it, it wouldn't get many hits because even if it was true, people would be so scared that it could really be real that it's just too weird and bad feeling to even be worth talking about. So I just don't even like to talk about that stuff.
Well, then don't talk about
I'd
it.
rather just have a good time and talk about happy things and entertaining.
Good.
Some crazy, evil, huge politicians that are probably like flying overhead in concealed $300 million aircrafts that have like fucked up, really old bodies that everyone thinks they're dead, but they're actually still up there flying around, like hovering over people and like doing this big, powerful, evil shit on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't get sleep for 2 weeks and sound like some crazy, like, yeah, California and smoking weed and man, they're crazy as shit, $300 million craft.
Where were we? Where were we before we got interrupted there? Anyway, back to
if it's true. I think it was all in my mind.
It could be, John. So the bottom line is we have to come from our heart. We have to feel it here. If you feel it here and that you feel good about it, then you're good to go. And I always preface the show, don't believe anything I say, look it up. I'm just your griot. I'm just telling you a story, And John in his own way just told us a story, But anyway, where was I? See, that's, John comes in, I've got a train of thought for a show, and he comes in and, blows it apart, and it's all good because he's the canary in the coal mine. So everything he does so represents, it's getting a little hot up there, so represents what's going on in our country that when he comes down and decides to, hijack the show, I just lean back and let him go. Because it's good for him to vent, Better to vent on the show than vent on me. Anyway, it's really freaking hot, So, this show will be about an hour long or so. So it's good to see you, Twitch. Night, Mr. T, nighty night. I'm always good to see you and everybody else who came in and left, and everyone else who has will watch this later. I thank you for coming. What else? Well, I'm going to do more research on this kind of idea of the metal universe, the carbon universe, and the silicate universe, and that there's a war, and the conflict that's going on that we see in front of us is this conflict between, and if you go look at what's really interesting, if you go look at the periodic table, it's broken down into, metals, carbons, and silicates. And the things that are metals are the really wacko, dangerous, poisonous kind of stuff. The carbon's not so much because the carbons basically feed the trees, which give off oxygen, and the trees are like the lungs of our planet. So if you're worried about your carbon footprint, plant some trees. And they really grow pretty fast. It's like out in the deep green, I planted a lot of stuff. And the stuff I planted 10 years ago are now 20, 30, 40 feet tall. The stuff grows like all get out. So that's because I kind of thinned out the forest there. And it rains a lot and it's sunny a lot. And so, yeah, and there is, there are a number of carbon sinks nearby, the lake, and there are some horse and cow farms that are a couple of mountain ranges. When the 4th of July happened, so I know everybody within a 30, 40-mile radius of where my front door is. And so when 4th came, it was kind of fun because there would be a flash in the sky, and then 10, 15, 20 seconds later, an explosion. And, so I could tell how many miles away everybody was, oh, there's Bob blowing that up. And these folks were using some serious fireworks. And so that was a force. So I had a few bottle rockets. That's about all I had. And, and I couldn't see the fireworks, but it would light the sky up. And then I'd hear the loud crash. And then the dogs down the holler from me about 4 or 5 miles would go crazy, and then they shut up, and then the explosion. So for about an hour and a half, it was like a war zone. I mean, it wasn't like boom, 10 minutes and then boom. No, for about 2 hours between dark 30 and maybe 11 p.m. It was like the front. So again, what we're put here on Earth is not to worry about Kroger's or any of the above, because all you have to do, wherever you get your food, is bless it, energize it, And then it's like my sensei, he once drank a bottle of Clorox bleach, with a cap, that what had been broke. He didn't empty and put water in there. No, he went in the closet, came out with a thing of Clorox, and it hadn't been opened. He snapped a little plastic thing, and then pulled off the aluminum thing, and then jug, drank it, just to show us that it's an illusion, and that if you are coming from the right place and have the right intent and the right energetics, you can do anything. And that is basically the motif of the Jedi, let the force be with you, right? So and that's what I'm saying to you guys, don't try, do, and that you can do anything. I just met a very nice person, and she's a chemist, and she was going on about, what she's doing. I said, well, why don't you do what you want to do? And she goes, I said, you're not married. You don't have kids. You have no real responsibility. You went to school and they kind of gave you, because you were so smart, they paid for it mostly. And you don't have to be, a slave to anybody. Why don't we take a road trip? Why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? And she'll like, and then, I got her to agree to a few things. And then it was like, wow, this is the most fun. And that's all of us, gang, Now people look at me and go, oh, you're a homeless guy with no money and, this is terrible. You made your decision. No, I don't regret anything, right? And it doesn't matter, where I am, there I am, wherever I go, there I am, and it works out. Like there's some corporate folk who I helped about 8 years ago, and they're not too far from here, from Blacksburg, and they want to I helped them rebrand their thing, and they were kind of going off the cliff, and I helped them navigate this way with an exit strategy. But what happened was, rebranded them, they became really good in their little niche, and instead of staying on that course towards the exit strategy, they went for as much money as they could. So they kind of painted themselves into a corner. So they brought me back to help them. And so they come down here, take me out to lunch, and give me a few Benjamins. So that makes, I only have about $400 for my, after I pay all my health care and this and my car insurance, I have about $300 for a month, right? And then that doesn't really pay for my medicines or my phone bill or electric bill or a lot of things. So if anyone throws me a Benjamin or two, that's really nice. Well, I saw them before I went to the Green, and I was writing things. So I wrote them a number of, plans and strategies and vision statements and things of that nature. And statements of like where they started, where they were, where they took the fork into the exit strategy, what happened when they ignored that and went for the short-term profit, and then where they are now and where they want to go and how to get there, right? So that was other than the two novels that I've been writing. It's been one thing I've been writing. Plus, I've been writing about the alternative aesthetic. But I took their business data and it helped me think about the alternative aesthetic. So anyway, so since I got back, they came and visited, and they said, "Al, isn't that the same clothes you wore a month and a half ago when when we last saw you?" I said, "Yeah," and I haven't washed it. As long as it doesn't smell, it's okay. And these guys are in suits, and they were like, but they've known me a long time, and I've always came through for them. So, and I've always been, as one guy said, Al, you are a acquired taste, but we've known you long enough, and you've always come through for us. So we don't care that you wear your bedroom slippers and your pajamas, to the, boardroom. It freaks out our board, but that's even better because it puts them on. Yeah, and we know that you're doing it on purpose, blah, blah, blah. But hey, you're not playing that game right now. You're still, I said, guys, I'm a homeless guy, no place to really stay. I can be a guest at people's places. I can be a guest at the different places in the deep green that I'm at. But there's no place that I can call my own. But in reality, no one, people who think they have but spent their whole life doing something so they could be safe and secure. Well, there is no safety and security in the material world anyway. So anyway, what was so nice the other day was they, again, I had another white paper for them, and I wanted to hear what they did with the stuff I had given them before. And they came and they took me out to lunch. They gave me a few Benjamins, but they said, "Come on out to the car." And they had gotten me orthopedic shoes because the ones I had were like not good for me. So they actually went and got orthopedic shoes for me, right? And got me khaki pants and, got me business clothes because they said, "Listen, at a certain point, we want you to come back into our fold and not be the disruptive guy, but, help us navigate into the exit strategy. And you can't just come in your pajamas this time. You got to, because that was just, you did that. It was like a military march, right? You spent a week and a half and you got rid of the people we needed to get rid of, and we could blame you, right? But this is a different thing. We need you to give us the long march and kind of be there as the instructor for everybody. And these people won't be able to do it if you're dressed, wearing the same outfit, 3 months in a row. So they bought me nice pants and nice shirts, and they were all, brand new. So they're all folded in boxes and pressed, and, and that was nice. I mean, yes, it's for their, look, but, They didn't. They probably spent $200 or $300, and they bought me 4 pairs of these orthopedic shoes. That was quite nice of these people, And I'm sure that it looked like, they didn't buy it for me. They bought it for somebody else, like maybe their father or somebody, and then they died, and they had like a house full of this stuff. And so, it was in the back of this person's car, and he said, look through this, because whatever you don't have, I'm going to bring to this hospital because I really need clothes. So, yes, these are business people. They're corporate folk, but they're human beings too. And that's what I'm working towards bringing out in all our relations, that we stop looking at each other as the other, but see each other as our relations. All major store chains are hell pits. But you know what's interesting about that, Twitch? So, like the place that he was talking about, they have a protocol that they have to go through. But like I said, there's 4 managers, and 2 are black guys. One's a Hispanic woman, and there is one white guy, but he's not the top. The top guy in the managerial staff of that store is black, right? And they got a very diverse group of people there, and they're very, very helpful and very sweet. And I'm pretty idiosyncratic, and I've been going in there for a good 15 years. I know the manager. I know everybody, right? I read all their palms and stuff, and they say, I could be a strange person. I mean, people do, like that person said, I'm an acquired taste, and there are a lot of people who are scared people, who are really, really, really have to be in control. And when I kind of waltz into their life, it kind of throws them for a loop. Exactly. Sometimes the hell is created by the customers. And I would say that's true, because the majority of the people who go and shop there are rich kind of people. And they look at all the folks who work there as the other, but they have gotten used to it because the people do their job really well. They have a guy who's somewhat autistic bagging, and he does a really great job. There's a person who's doing this, and they do a really great job. And so they look at them like they're robots, or slaves or servants. Little do they know that they are the robot and they are the slave. So, but you're right there. That health, but the tenor of that store is the managerial staff, the secondary managerial staff, the third managerial staff, and then all the people who work there. And they get paid really well, and they have vacation and health care, and there are a lot of people who need the health care. There are a lot of old folks there, Now, someone once said, Al, you should get a job at that Kroger's. They take care of you. Well, the problem is I can't. The physical kind of, I can't stand standing. I can't be sitting. I can't, I have to move around, and I really, can't lift heavy things, can't move this, can't do that. I can't barely, I got to wear 4 pairs of glasses, meaning I couldn't scan things and I couldn't read labels. And, I have real limitations for a situation like that. Unless they wanted, a shaman griot who would read the customer's palms. And I've read everyone's palm who works there. And the manager actually likes it when I do that, because he says the people seem to be nicer the day I kind of waltz through their store and interact with the people who are working there. And there are always, there was this this kid who was, I shouldn't call him a kid. He's probably 40, but he had the mentalness of about a 10-year-old, and he was a bagger, right? And so he's bagging my stuff, and he was doing things like putting the eggs at the bottom of the bag and then putting cans on them. And I said, whoa, buddy. And he go, what's wrong? What, did I do something wrong? I said, no. I said, has anyone ever taught you how to bag? And he goes, well, no. I mean, I just put the stuff in the bag. And I said, yeah, there's a kind of protocol. And he goes, protocol? And I said, a way of doing it. that turns out really good. So I took the stuff out of the bag and I said, listen, cans should go in one bag. Eggs should be in a bag all by themselves. Vegetables, bag by themselves. Dairy, bag by themselves. And the dairy and frozen food you should put in a paper bag and then put that in a plastic bag because that paper bag will act as a refrigerator. Keep it cold. And he's like, okay. And so he does it. We do it together, and everyone's watching me do this. The manager over there in his manager booth is watching me do this. And the kid is like, he's 40 years old. The person is doing this, and he's like, wow, he keeps saying, no one's ever told me. Now I know how to do it. Now I'm doing great. Now, and I said, you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job. You are really good at this. You just need to know how the protocol. I'm doing the protocol. He puts it in my little basket, and we start to roll out. He's going to come and help me put it in the car. And the guy who was in charge of the scan, where there is no checkout girl, you check yourself out, but there's a guy there with a handheld thing to there's a problem. So he's there, and he's probably 24, and he's about 6 something, and he's not in the best, he's kind of chunky, a little flabby, a bully. And so as we were rolling, the moron learned how to put the stuff in the bag. The moron, he just kept him calling, and you could see the guy like this, right? So I'm going along in the motorized cart because I can't walk on the concrete. And if I walk around, I need to sit down, and then if I need to sit, So I'm doing. That's why I always, that's why they have the motorized cart for a guy like me. And so anyway, and as we are going towards the door, and the guy who's helping me, he has got, a push basket, and I'm in the rolly thing, and instead of going out the door with him, I go straight towards the bully, right? And he's standing in front of one of these, robot checkout things, and I go, slow speed's about half a mile an hour, medium speed's about 1 mile an hour, really fast speed is about, almost 2 miles an hour. So I put the pedal to the metal and I go straight to him. And he's like, he doesn't notice me. And then I'm right on him, and I crash into him and pin him against, the machine. He can't get away, right? And I say, if you ever say anything like that to anybody who works here, I'm coming back. And I'm not going to be in this little car. I'm going to drive my truck in here, and I don't have a truck. I'm going to come in with my truck and drive over you and park on your head. And you're not going to. And then I go, you're a bully because you're scared of your own shadow. And he's got his name on there, it's Bob. And I take the little microphone, clean up on Isle of Poor. And I go, there's a real moron here named, Bob. And he runs the thing, and he's a bully, and he's a this. And I kind of reached into his zeitgeist and just told everyone in that Kroger's who and what this guy was. And everyone stopped. I mean, all the baggers, all the managers, everybody, because they were kind of right there and just was watching this. And the guy just, and, I think he peed himself, and he pushed, the cart to the side and ran away. And I said, there he goes. There goes Bob. There goes the bully. Look, he's wet himself, and he runs into the bathroom and hides. And the head manager comes over to me and goes, I want to thank you. I said, what? I said, what you just did. I said, what? I said, that guy, I can't fire him. I can't even, tell him that what he's doing is inappropriate because we have certain protocols here. And he got this job because he knows somebody in the higher things. No one can ever go up against this guy. And he thinks he can't be touched. But you just raised, you want any more food? I'll give you whatever, what do you want some steak? I said, no. It's good enough. I like I come in here all the time. I know we've talked and da. I said, yep. I said, so maybe he will leave on his own volition, you know? And he goes, I hope. And so the next time he came, Bob had left on his own volition. And the guy who was he every time I see the Packer guy, it's now 3 years later. I go in there, I see the Packer. He says, I'm still doing the protocol. I know the protocol. I mean, and that's what we all need to do for our fellow brothers and sisters. We have to step into, like today, I was out one of my breakfast spots, and I was trying to get ready to maybe do a morning chat, but I didn't quite feel up to it. And people, there's this place I eat at. It has a little big dining room, and then it has three little ones that maybe 20 or 30 people can sit in. The big one you can sit probably 70 people in there. So there's this one I sit in that has a plug. It's like my office, right? It's got a plug there. I can plug, but my phone and my this laptop were, low. So I kind of plugged them in to be. So I was reading my Science of Mind book and underlining and writing things, and this guy came in, sat down, and I've known him because pretty much everybody there eats there pretty regularly because it's very affordable and the food's pretty good and the service is very nice. It's like a family. It's a very nice place. And so I'm sitting there and the guy's he's in the other side of he's like 3-4 booths from me and he's over there and he's kind of chopping his food and I didn't see him come in, but I saw him sitting there and I've talked to him before. And he is a Vietnam vet who was, real hard, assassin basically guy, right? He was a Delta Force kind of guy. And he did really bad things. And he was turned into, he was experimented on. And so once he starts talking, he's talking about his experiences with MK Ultra and aliens and, the chemtrails and you name it. He talks about it. And he has experience of it. He's been down in the dumbs and deep underground military bases. And, he just goes on and on. But you can tell this guy has been, played with. But everything he's saying, I know he's straight up right on, right? So he's over there, and then he starts mumbling to himself, and then he's kind of like John, then he goes off to the races on this stuff, right? And I'm watching, there's 4 groups of people. It's one group that's kind of right next to me, and then there's the other 3 tables that are on the other side of this dining room. And I don't know them. I know the people who are next to me, and they're kind of churchy, uptight people. So this guy is going on and on about it. And the manager of that store had been in the military, so he doesn't really get in this guy's face. He understands. And the women who are the waitresses, they know everyone, and they have their faves, and then everybody else they kind of. You're not their fave. They just, take care of business. Anyway, so these 3 groups are kind of going on. And the best thing I can do for that guy is say, hey, Bob, come over here. Sit at my table. Let's talk. And the people who were between Bob and me were like, this guy's nuts. And I said, no. I'm in reality, Bob over there is telling us the truth. And these 3 groups are like, hear me say this. And I said, I look at them because I can tell that these people are somewhat open-minded and they're new to the neighborhood, right? I've seen them at this restaurant. And I'm going, this guy is true. And I switch into my griot mode. And when he says something, I then back it up with, a texture these people can identify with even more. And then they start talking to me. And this one woman says, do you believe in aliens? I said, well, listen to Bob. He's talking about it. And yes, what he is saying is true. And then I would add more context to it. And so that group started like listening to Bob going, yeah. And then the other 2 groups were like, And those started, and so those 3 groups started talking to each other. And realizing that they were experiencing the same thing, meaning each of those tables, one was a couple, the other was 4 people, the other was 3. And they were all retiring kind of people. And they had all come to Roanoke because it's a very good retiree town. There's a lot of real estate that's relatively affordable. The living standards are relatively affordable. And then medical scene is like, that's why I keep coming back. I got people to take care of me. So, I keep saying to Bob, come on, sit down. And the people who were between Bob and I got up in a huff and left, right? I can't stand this place. These people are crazy. Da, 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 da. And it's all, obviously they've got their own belief structure and anything that tests it, they get uncomfortable. Whereas these other people, they had varying different belief structures, but they were looking for the truth. They were retiring, and they weren't retiring to die. They were retiring to have time. And then Bob he said, I got to go. And when he got up, he was wearing shorts and a t-shirt, a spaghetti t-shirt. And man, he had scars. You could see chunks of him were blown. This guy, it was amazing. he looked like something out of a horror movie. His face was fine, but, he had just, Frankenstein scars everywhere, and his legs were a mess, And I talked to him about it, and he had told me about it, but every time I would talk to him, he'd be wearing pants or shirts that you couldn't see, but it was really hot, so he's wearing shorts and this spaghetti t-shirt, so you could really see the things that he went through on the battlefield. And everyone was like, and but he told me that his legs were so messed up because they experimented on his legs. And he was like, one of the X-Men. Who's the guy who has the adamantium metal in him? He's got things in him, plates and bars and all kinds of things. And he said, well, they just experimented on me. He didn't say it that day, but we had talked about it before because I know all about this stuff, and I would ask him questions, and he would be, wow, someone who believes me and kind of knows what I'm talking about, right? And when I'm there, he will speak up, and that's why I was there, right? And I was talking to these other people. And so anyway, he leaves, and then we, with about 8 people in those 3 tables, have a really amazing conversation. And none of them know, each table doesn't know each other, but they all have retired from 2 bunches of them worked in not the government per se, but businesses that service, up in Northern Virginia. And the couple who was right across from me, they were so sweet. And he actually did a lot of the stuff that I did, control wiring, and he had worked on a lot of very interesting things that I knew about. And so we're all having this very interesting conversation. They kind of come to a realization that they all have come to Roanoke to retire. And they all liked this place, and they're all bought little, home. They had big homes, and now they sold their big home, and they've got these little homes that are like just a block away from this restaurant. So they're going to be coming to this restaurant for breakfast. And they all said, you here all the time? I said, yeah, at least once or twice a week I have breakfast here because the phone works really good. There's great Wi-Fi, and I got this plug right here. It's like, and they let me sit here. That manager will let me sit there from 7 a.m. till like 2 p.m. when they close down for 2 hours before they open up for dinner, And he let me do it, And, so I will sit there, and there's 3 waitresses who really like me, and they take really good care of me. And I give them the best tip I can. If I spend $11, I give them $3. And for a guy who only has $15 a week, so and they know this. And so they appreciate it. I've read their palms and given them advice and talked to them about things. And so they're down for all of that. And then there's another 4 who are just there. It's their job, and they have their own favorites within their own, worldview. But there's this one waitress, I don't know how many hundreds of times she had waited on me, and she treats me like it's the first time she's ever seen me. And she'll never come and give me freshen up my coffee. She'll never, you know, she'll make me wait 10 minutes before she'll come. Where there's three waitresses, I always have the same thing. I have a corned beef hash omelet with grits and a English muffin. And a orange slice to squeeze into my grits. Instead of cheese, I like the orange. Anyway, and this woman will always bring me cheese grits, which it's like, ugh, and a tomato. And if she brought me a tomato, and the cook, if he knows it's from me, he will put that tomato on the grill. But she makes sure not to, so I get like a tomato that's like a piece of cardboard. She does it every time. And then, and I have to, ask her time, can you more coffee? Whereas the three waitresses who take care of me, they bring me, they don't even, what do you want? They just bring me the omelet, the grits, and the English muffin, and they bring me a glass of ice, a cup of coffee, and a pot, because I drink, I'll drink 3 or 4 or 5 cups of coffee when I'm at that place, and I put the coffee in the ice, and I have hot and cold. And that one waitress won't ever bring me. You should never eat. What do you? Iced coffee? That's terrible. I'm the freaking customer. Anyway, so most of the time I get those 3 girls, and once in a while I get the other 3 girls who, don't. Anyway, so those 3 couples, those 3 tables, all realize that they are now going to be each other's neighbors. Oh, you're over there. Oh, well, it was like something out of a Ferngully play, and and they all, oh wow, can you tell us one day that you're going to be here so we can all come and we can talk and you can tell us stories? I mean, they're now part of the Griot cadre. When they all went out together to look at each other's houses, and because they realized they were almost in the same block, I walked out with them and gave them my business card. I said, so you need to, go online and get on the Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob railroad line. So anyway, hey, Rob, good to see you. I'm talking enough to see if we can get a crew together, and we haven't really gone above 5. So that was that interesting day. And that same day, and then because I have no real food and no money, and I've been, spending my pennies on getting stuff to feed John and me, I was going to go to the food pantry, right? Which I know the lady who runs it, and I go there. And in the summertime, the farmers bring fresh vegetables there, really fresh, And the poor people, for some reason, don't want to eat fresh vegetables. And all they're looking for is mac and cheese and yodels. And anyway, and so the food bank people know what I want, and they, most of the people want, Wonder Bread white, but they still have like the 9-grain whole grain bread, and they give me that because they know I have diabetes and that's better for me. So they're very good, right? Well, I went by there and it was closed. Actually, they were tearing the freaking building down. So, and there was no sign saying we've moved to, here. And I asked the guys working out, I have no idea. So I said, well, I'll go over to social services. So I drive over there and park in front of social service and get out and go to the front desk and say, hey, where do you guys move the food bank to? And the lady goes, you have to, log in on the computer. So I said, all I want to just tell me the address. No, log in. I said, okay. Because again, they want to monetize, show the state. Oh, we've had so many people, right? So I do that. And then I go, and she goes, well, I can't tell you. I said, what are you talking about? And she says, well, you don't live in this town, and you used to, but you don't now. And so it's illegal for you to get, I said, listen, I'm homeless and I'm hungry. And the food bank is set up for homeless and hungry people. I am one of them. And I mean, most homeless people don't have an address, and she goes, well, what are you here for anyway? Why are you in Roanoke? And I said, it says here that, you're not in this state. And I said, because my doctors are here. Well, she goes, don't you should go see your doctors in where you are. And I said, I live in Appalachian poverty. There is no medical anything there, period. In a 50-mile radius of my front door, there isn't a doctor, and there is no protocol for homeless people. You're either rich and you can have a doctor, or you die. And the people around me are dying, they're in their 50s and they're dying. They're in their 20s and they're dying. The kids who are 20s who didn't get out look like they're 50. The people who are 50 who are dying look like they're 100, because all they've eaten their whole freaking life is mac and cheese, Yodels, and Mountain Dew. And they've been, sucking on cigarettes and or tobacco, chewing tobacco, and all their teeth are rotten out, And so I don't have any teeth now, but my gums are really healthy and they're all healing up very nicely. And I can't chew nuts, but I can pretty much chew anything else, And I went to see my dental surgeon and he said, well, everything's, healing up very nice, but, it's still going to be healing for at least another 3 or 4 months. But he said, the way things are coming in, in about 3 months, man, you're going to be able to eat. He said, well, how are you doing eating that? And I said, well, I was, blending everything, but now I'm actually, I said, and I'm realizing that it's better for me because since I don't have teeth, I don't just grab it and go and then swallow big chunks, put it in my mouth, and I kind of suck on it and let my saliva start the digestive process, right? And as soon as it becomes mushy, I kind of chew it up with my gums and then, swallow it. And he goes, yep, that's a good thing. He said, in about 3 months, you probably won't even need dentures. He goes, I have a lot of patients that don't get the dentures. So that's where I'm at with that. But so there I was at social services. I was trying to explain all this to her. And she goes, well, you don't belong here. And you should just go back from where you came from and die. Sounds a lot like, Donald Trump, This was about the same day that he tweeted that those women should go back to where they came from. Anyway, so, I take my little Jedi sense, my twitchy sense, and I go straight into her. And I can see that she is kind of a sociopath. And I could see that she had, as a child, set, bird nests with baby birds in it on fire with gasoline and maybe killed a dog or two or a cat or two. And I basically, so you have this job because you wanted to get the same kind of thrill you did when you burnt those baby birds in the nest with gasoline. And she nearly fell. She fell out of her chair and nearly fell on the ground and went into comatose. And her supervisor, who was behind her, was like the evil witch. She was like, oh, good. Now I can really play with some juicy stuff here, And then I looked over at the folks who were in the waiting room, and they were horrified because they depended on these people. And anyway, so I said right there and then, okay, I'm not going to make a big thing out of this to myself. I'm just going to say, okay, no problem. See you later. Bye. I didn't say anything nasty after I said, you got this job because you love tormenting people, just like you did to those birds in the nest with gasoline. Anyway, so went around, walked out. And one of those women in the waiting room came out to me and said, listen, the food bank is right over there. It's you go down by the gas station, turn left, and there it is. And it's a little house. It's not the big building it used to be. It's a little teeny house. So I went over there. And, I went to see the lady, and they had it set up great. It was like they had a warehouse, and Kroger and everybody else was giving them truckloads of stuff. And this was a teeny little house, and there was hardly anything there. There was no vegetables, no nothing. It was just, macaroni and cheese and ketchup and Fruit Loops and, really the worst of the worst food. And the staff was all gone. It was just this one lady who was their bookkeeper type of person and another guy in the back filling up bags, right? And I said, what happened? And she said, well, they cut our service, by 90%. We are just doing 10% of what we did. And she said, in this year, and she goes, for what you know me, we talked about this, in the last 10 years, the need has gone up by precipitous. And this last year, 2019, the need to feed people who can't afford to buy food has like way up. And then they cut it by 90%. I said, they cut the budget. And she goes, no, they did not cut the budget, meaning the SNAP money, all of that is still coming the way it is, but it's going into the general service budget, for people's salaries and paving floors and I said, isn't that against the law? Isn't that inappropriate? Isn't that? And she goes, they just want to get rid of us. I said, it started. She was a church person. It started. This church did it. They did such a good job. The county, the city allowed them to do it and started helping them fund. Then the state started helping them fund, and then they were hooked into social services. And she goes, this is remedy for disaster because, last year, 2018, when we still in the warehouse still had big stuff, we gave over 200,000 people food. Not every month, but in that year. And and she goes, now we're doing a couple of hundred this month. And she goes, we have to pay rent on this building. And the other building, the county owned, so we paid no rent. We're paying $3,000 for this little teeny house. And we didn't get to pick it. Social services did. So that she said, there's an agenda here to, really, squeeze, make people suffer. And so that's what's going on. And then I started to do some research the other day about this. It's not just happening here, it's happening across the country. So, and it's like when things like that happen, it's done for a reason. It's like, why the French Revolution? Because, let them eat cake. Meaning all the French people were like starving and the rich people were eating high on the hog. And the poor people knew that there was food to be had because they were growing it and putting it in the king's warehouse and they didn't get any of it. And that's kind of what's being forced here. And back when John got here, and I was here for about 4 or 5 months, and then he kind of got fidgety and started throwing me out. And, he did it. The first time he did it was the day after Christmas, 2015. And he did it at night. I can't see anything. I mean, I only have a vehicle that's very, I don't like going down our riverbed driveway that's 2 miles long at night. I can't see anything. And he just, right? Anyway, and then he would beg me to come back and stay, and then he'd throw me out. And so that winter, he threw me out about, a good 15 times. And then January came, and he threw me out. So, 15, and then the beginning of 15. He threw me out about 26 times. But anyway, every time I left, the first time he did that, I was like in shock. Couldn't believe it. And I went and stayed on a friend's couch, and then he called. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'll never do that again. We did it 26 times. But the interesting thing about it, after that, I then went through a process of, I'm a structural strategy guy. I set up 5 or 6 different places where I could, in a pinch, go stay on the couch for a few days. And, since it wasn't just one person, okay, sure. Oh, no, come and stay. And I'd stay a couple. And usually John would have me back. And one of these times, maybe about the 6th time, I had gotten everything nicely, I'm just waiting for John to lose it and throw me out. And then, he would apologize. I'll never do that again. And we'd make contracts and, So one of these times, a very synchronistic thing happened. A friend of mine, so I've been involved in the politics in this valley, good 20 years. So I know all the usual suspects, all the players, all the sock puppets, all the people who are trying to do a good job, like these 3 ladies who are running for legislature, and they're not politicians, they were grandmas and they worked as teachers and nurses and social workers. And then when they retired from that, they started things where they just help people, out of their living room, and really good people. So I've been saying to them for years, you need to run for, state legislature. Forget city council or mayor, just run for that. That's where the power is. You might be able to do something. So anyway, way before this, one of my friends who had a nonprofit, and he would get buildings, and it was like Habitat, but he had a very interesting way of doing it, and he did, and set up a nonprofit, and he was a minister. He wasn't, ordained or anything, but he had his own ministry, and he helped a lot of people. And so this church was a very nice church downtown, one of the oldest ones. And everyone in it was like the youngest person who was a parishioner was like maybe 60. And one winter, the flu went through this town and it killed, they had maybe 60 people who were in that church. And then, almost 30 of them died. So they were left with like 20 or 12 or 15. And they realized, wow, we have to get some new blood in this. So the guy who was the minister, he was a great minister, a great guy. I knew him pretty well. And he tried to do the best he could for everybody. But he was getting old too. He was in his 70s. He needed to retire. So they asked my friend to be their minister. And what they wanted from him, they said, well, he had this cachet of being a social, doing things for people. And we want to, because we're probably all going to be dead in the next 2 years. And we want to be remembered as a church that, did Jesus's works, right? So my friend said, fine. So, I'm out on the street and I bump into him and he goes, wow, aren't you up on the hill at school? I said, no. He goes, well, I said, well, I sold it and this guy and he's thrown me out. And he goes, well, come here. Come on. And we go into the church and they have, this church is beautiful. A great sanctuary. Down in the basement, they have a common room that can seat maybe 200 people. They have a big, gigantic kitchen that has a garland stone with like 12 burners and a fryolator and a hood and 2 big refrigerators and really great. You could cook like food for 500 people. And they used to, And so, and then the back side of the sanctuary, where the office was on the ground floor, they had 3 floors. And each floor was like maybe 1,000 square foot that had these foldable walls, and they had these were classrooms, right? And one of them was a daycare center. But, last time was a daycare center was about, 10 years ago. So, but it was there, had a nice rug. They had this and it had couches. And you can sleep in here. It's, the heat will be on and you won't freeze to death in your car. But, you have to get out of here by 7 o'clock, because that's when one of the old ladies who's runs the place, my secretary will come and open the place up, and she finds you here, she'll get very upset. So he said, "What I think I need you for," and this was his real ulterior motive. He goes, "I want to really double down on the social thing. So you've been doing all this stuff here. I want you to do it out of the church, and I can take all the credit for it." And I said, "Fine, no problem. We'll use the resources here to do the good works. Not a problem." So I had a place to stay, and I had a, a vehicle, right? This church, and it had great stuff. So I became the social outreach guy, right? And we were doing a jobs fair. We had um, different groups. If you wanted to, I had this thing called Action Tuesday. If you were any kind of group, any social group at all, and you need a place to have a meeting, bingo, you could do it here. And I started writing grants to build an umbrella for this place. So any of those kind of groups that wanted to go deeper, like daycare and healthcare and education and take care of homeless people and all those things, but they didn't have it together to start a 501c3. I wrote this thing to be an umbrella for anybody who wanted to do anything, right? And I wanted to turn that commons room into a restaurant called the No Fear Cafe, because it was like right in the middle of the town. The newspaper was here, the TV station was here, the city hall was here, the courthouse was there, all within a block of this place. The police department across the street, the sheriff's just a block away, the Red Cross, you name it, it was all around there. And there was no place to have lunch within 3 or 4 blocks of this place. So this would be a place that was less than a block for all these places. And if I could find some people to make good food, and I started cooking. So on Action Tuesday, I would cook a meal during the day, and then the leftovers from that, I'd make it a soup for the people who would come to have meetings. So we were doing that, and it was doing really good, and things were great. And I started getting people from different neighborhoods who didn't have a church to come to this church. And I started having music because the acoustics of the place, and I had a pipe organ, and it was just an amazing. And the way that it was laid out, it was a stage, right? They had steps on both sides, but they put the altar down on the main floor. And I put casters on it so you could roll it out of the way and have this big, so you could dance in front of the stage and have bands up there. So every Friday we had music and dancing, and then we had theater and poetry readings and all of this kind of very active stuff. And then out of that, so I had these meetings, every Action Tuesday. And if you had a specific meeting, because they had all these rooms, and I put, big long tables with chairs around them in those rooms. So if people wanted, some group wanted to have an organizational meeting, they could do it there. The Action Tuesday was for a group of people to sit in a circle and meet each other and talk about, their experiences. And it was a very good thing because we had really mixed groups. We had the LGBT people, people of color, people who were, working 5 jobs and still only making, $300 a week. And I wanted them, it was like a salad bowl. I wanted them to compare notes and realize how much they were like each other, because if they could organize together, they would, be cool. So there was a union group, and this guy wanted $15 an hour. And my attitude is, if you build the economy of an area, forget $15 an hour. You can get like Las Vegas. The money, there's so much money there, and they need housekeepers and janitors and people to fix things and do this and do that. The average pay in Las Vegas is $40, right? So that's what I said to those guys who were going, "Oh, we need $15 an hour." I said, forget that, $40. Okay? Anyway, so I was trying to build this movement, right? So those meetings were quite interesting. And one of the group of the $15 an hour, he represented he was a communist. He was the Southern regional guy for the Workers' Day World thing. So he would find stories here and send them back to the home office, wherever that was. And they would print that out, and then they'd send him a few hundred copies, and he would pass them around to the union guys. Anyway, so after about a month or two of me sleeping up there in the bat cave and then getting out by 7, this woman shows up, and a lot of different, and if people showed up and they just wanted to talk to the group, that was what this Action Tuesday was about. And this woman comes in very nicely dressed, and she goes, I am an endocrinologist and a geneticist. And I have realized that everything is connected, meaning people who are into politics, it has a lot to do with biology and the so she, we had one of those rolling around whiteboards that with markers, and she put out this most elegant description of how everything's interconnected, just right. And everyone's kind of like going, huh? But I'm going, wow, this woman is like unbelievable. Where's she been? Anyway, and then I make a comment. So how, here this group is more or less trying to strategize about this. And she goes, well, it's just like cancer. And she then takes it one step further and compares cancer to politics, right? And I'm like, this is amazing. And so she puts it all out, and everyone else is kind of going, because they don't quite understand what she's saying. But I'm getting it 100%. And I said, so did you ever read Alan Turing's books? And she goes, oh, of course. And that's where I got this idea of how humans and computers, because that was Turing's thing. His biggest, most famous book was Cyborg. And then his second book was Human Genome as a operating system for computers, for the new coming transhumanism. That was the first time. I mean, he wrote that in 1927. And this guy was smarter than all get out. And he was put in charge of Bletchley Park, which broke the Enigma code of the Nazis. So Winston Churchill knew everything the Nazis were doing before they did it. He heard all their conversations. It's like us reading people's emails today. And the Nazis were so sure that Enigma couldn't be broken. Well, they didn't know about Turing because he was just a grad student. He was not really published. And all his books that he wrote were so, he was talking about quantum computing in 1927 before there was a silicon chip. Anyway, so yes, that's why I got this idea how cancer and politics are the same thing. And I said, you're right. I read Turing's books, and you're right on there, girl. Anyway, long story short, she goes, well, I got to go. I said, where you got to go? She goes, well, I'm working as a bartender downtown. And I said, what bar are you working at? And the one she was the gay bar. And I go, oh, okay. And I said, well, maybe I'll drop down there for a drink. And she, oh, anytime. And she goes, I'm there in the afternoons because I'm setting it up for the evening. So if you want to really talk, it won't be loud and smoky and you being really busy. We can, I said, okay, sounds great. So I do go down and see her a couple of times, during the day when she's down there. And one day I kind of say, hey, how you doing? And she's like really upset. She's kicking things around and really, really upset. And I go, what's wrong? She goes, oh, I just lost my roommate. I can't afford my apartment. And I really like my apartment. I spent a good year like decorating it and painting it and fixing it up. And it's perfect. It's just 3 blocks from here. And those 3 blocks is like the prostitute neighborhood. It's the drug neighborhood. It's like probably the worst neighborhood in Roanoke, which most people don't even know it's there because they're so blank but the people who do know that's there is all of the preachers who go there to get a blowjob or get a skin pop. And so I go, well, I really need, because I'm getting pretty tired of sleeping up in the Bat Belfry and having to get out by 7. And I said, I need a place. I said, how much is the rent? She goes, $150 a month. And that would include, heat and electric. I said, well, man, that's in my, because I couldn't rent anything because I have 0 credit rating, right? And, every landlord in his, so I go, she goes, really? Oh, that's great. And she gives me this big hug and puts her breasts into my face. And then she starts kissing me, slipping me the tongue. And I'm going, this girl's kind of a good kisser. So I kiss her back and everything's really nice. And she's like, oh, so now she went from being like really pissed off and kicking, like, to being, oh, wow, this is, I'm so happy. You can move in tonight. And I had nothing, I just stuff in my car. So I said, okay, no problem. So I moved in, and she took a gigantic bed and put it in the living room. She said, this is your room, and my room is back there. It's my bedroom. I said, okay. She said, you don't mind sleeping in the, I said, no. It's because it had all these great windows, and it was bright and nice and beautiful. And so moved in there, and everything was great. And she then got another job to help get a new bar opened and be the main manager, and she was going to get a great salary and blah, blah, blah. And so she was real happy about that. And then she finds out that it's more or less just a money laundering scheme for some of the well-connected folks in town. And they basically, as she's cleaned up the whole place and scraped out the grease trap and done all this amazing hard work, they said, okay, you're not going to be the manager. You can just be one of the bartenders and you'll get $3 an hour in tips. She was like, livid, right? And, so I've been there a week or two, and, we talk a lot, and she tells me her whole history about how she worked at Johns Hopkins and how she, basically, found a cure for cancer. And all the cancer docs didn't want to hear it because she had scientific proof that she was right. And basically all she did was, cancer loves a acidic body. So if you're drinking a lot and eating crap food, you got an acidic body. But if you're eating just greens and you're eating alkaline food and alkaline water, your body becomes alkaline. It's not a host for cancer. Then she figured out this whole way of, so when the cancer cell kind of gets whacked and starts to mutate into cancer, it's part of the mitochondria. She found out a way how to shut off the current. Remember when we do guided meditations, and she learned how to, through radio waves, turn off the mitochondria so the cancer won't reproduce, even if there are cells there that are mutated. And so it was a basic cure. No cutting you up, no radiation, no chemotherapy. So so she had done the first level of research, but to do a protocol research, it's going to cost $1 million or so. And the cancer, everybody wouldn't give her a nickel because they didn't want a cure for cancer. And what happened was that when she was at Sloan Kettering and when she was at Johns Hopkins, she was a man. And this is when I find out that she's transitioning. Now we've been making out a lot, but I have no hormones in me, so I'm not really, I like the tenderness, the intimacy, but I'm not need to, no, that's not in me. If the right person showed up, that might be in me, but not so much. Anyway, and so, she thought I might be her new boyfriend, and that didn't quite work out. So she was still, she went back to the gay bar and she was bringing folk back, and I'd be asleep and they'd go off into her room and you'd hear furniture groaning and smashing. And Anyway, so one time she gets really depressed, and she's talking about, and I said, listen, you just need a better job. And by this time, I had been working at that church for about a month and a half. I really had it humming, making it money. All of the old people, I mean, I would come every Sunday an hour, and they would show up an hour before church started and just sit there. And I went around and talked to them, and that's what the minister's supposed to do. And I was doing his job. And I was I gave him books because he was giving really, dead, the same, there are a lot of people who tell you the same story over and over again. And after, like my dad, he had 8 stories in him. And I just got tired of listening to him. And that was this guy. And so I would help him. I would give him things and we'd work out the stuff. And he could write his own ministry so it could stay in his own tongue. But I would give him things, you should look at this. I look at this in the Bible. Look at this. Anyway, so he was doing great. He was really, and the old people love me. Now they instead of saying, "Who is this homeless guy?" They go, "Oh, we love Al," because I would come every Sunday an hour early and talk to them in the pews. How's your week? What you going? And they then vent and tell me their problems, and I try to give them some solace. And so it was humming like a top. And so I'd write these grants for them, and I had my limitations. But this girl, she's rocket science smart. She could type like a whiz and spelling amazing, and she really understood bureaucratic protocols. So once I showed her the template of how to write a grant for what we were looking for and how to look through, search engines for the right thing, and then I'd help her figure out a strategy. She was knocking down grant proposals, like not only writing them but getting them right. And so my buddy, who was the minister, he was like, I was his dream guy, and I kept giving him these ideas. We talk about stuff, and he hadn't been talking about theology or philosophy for a long time, and now I was like mainlining it into him. And he was going off to conferences and sounding so sharp and beautiful and brilliant. But the one little hiccup there was the paperwork side. He wasn't very good at it. I'm half blind. And he would get these workers from Vista who were worthless, right? And I had to spend half the day being a therapist to those morons to get anything out of them. But he would get money for it, meaning he would get their salary plus, the same amount of money that he could use in the organization, however he wanted to. And so they, to him, was like a, sacred cow. But it was driving him crazy because, nothing could get done. So I said, buddy, I have the perfect person to run the office and run everything that you can't do, don't want to do, and will free me up to be more the community organizer guy, so I don't have to play Freud with all your Vista guys. And she can do that. She's very good. So I introduced them, and it was starting to get to be February, early spring, and that's one of the nice things about Virginia. Spring comes very early, and they're sitting out in this nice little. It was a space between the parking lot of the what do they call those places where the dead people go, and then they embalm them and put them in the box, and people come, and then they drive them to the hole in the ground, the funeral home. And so and this church was like the church for the funeral home. And between the parking lot and the back of the church, it was a nice space, about 20, that was just kind of crappy. I cleaned it out, and I put a garden and plants and benches, and the sun came through it all day long in the nicest, most beautiful ways. And there's a big tree, and whenever it got really hot, you'd have shade, and the light would come through the branches and then the leaves. And it was a really nice place. So I had them there, and I just sat there and stayed and meditated and lifted their chakras up to the point where he said, "Oh yeah, you're hired," and then she goes, "Well, I need it," and then I said, "She needs a salary." Now I knew he's making some bucks, and so he goes, "Well, I don't know how much you can pay." I said, "Well, I know you can pay her $500 a week," which was way more than she was making in the bar. I mean, if she's going to do this job right, she can't be working in the bar at night too. So he goes, "Oh yeah, okay, $500. That sounds good on a temporary thing, right?" So get her in there, and she just takes control and just turns it into a top. And it's doing great. So I have a place to live. I got a place to run my little projects through. And yes, he's not paying me a nickel, but I have a lot of what do they call it? Side things that you get. Not bonuses, but perks. So my little Action Tuesday goes pretty good, and I meet these two Jamaican ladies. Somebody brings them to me, and they said, "Listen, we're from Jamaica," and they bring me a box of the food that they make: jerk chicken, pork chops, vegetables, and baked goods. And I had lived in Jamaica, and it was just like being in a grill back in the 60s. And I go, "Whoa, this is amazing." So, okay, this is what it is. We're going to have this restaurant here called the No Fear Cafe. And you want to have a restaurant? And I take them into we go to the church, and I take them and they're like, "Oh, look at this kitchen. Oh my God, it's so amazing." And I said, "So we have a food pantry. So you won't have to pay rent. You won't have to pay electric bill. You won't have to pay any taxes. You won't, because it's a church. You won't have to, get any licenses because it's a church. And you can run your restaurant, and you can take 80% of what we make. The other 20 will have to kind of go, for the general cost of this. We can't expect the church to pay for you and you make 100% profit. So you get 80, the church will get 20. And they said, "Oh, that's great." And then the minister comes, "Who are these people?" And I pull them over to the side. I said, "These are the people who are really going to make you famous." And he goes, "Really? How are we going to do that?" And I explained the whole thing. And he goes, "I don't know about that." I said, "Come on. We'll have free food, restaurant, all the different meetings that you have. These people make food for you for free. You got this great kitchen. Nobody uses it. I've been here now 4 months. Nothing, right? These people be knocking out food." And I explained how I said, "We're going to have the judges here, the police here, all of the mayor here, all of those people. This will be a center of power." "Oh, and it all revolve around me?" I said, "It all revolve around you. It's okay. You organize it. You make sure it works well, and then I'll take all the credit." So, and that's the kind of sock puppet you want, So we get it going. So now we're having all these meetings. We're having theater. We're having music. We're having poetry. It's becoming the cultural, spiritual hub. And all these gigantic churches around. What are these guys doing? So they're all coming to, the poster boy, and he's like going to their churches, and he's going to the, cocktail parties and the golf courses for dinner. And, but all of those people aren't stupid. They see that, oh, Al is doing it. And I've known these guys. I've been there 20 years trying to get them to do stuff. So I'm now getting these big churches to kind of see what this little church can do. You can do it too. So they're kind of doing all of this. We're dancing with it, not doing it so much. Anyway, so Tuesday, Action Tuesday. And so people with the groups are in all those rooms doing their little meetings. And I am having this group thing where, I met the rocket scientist girl, and now she is running. She is totally taken control of the thing. And she can learn anything like that. So there was like an electric organ down in the dining room. And she, when she got bored with the paperwork, she would go in there and play with that keyboard. And within a week or two, she had learned how to play the piano and the organ. Then she used to go upstairs and play this big pipe organ, like it was like boom, and the whole church would shake, and it was the most fun I had in a long time, right? And so and we were quite an interesting duo. And so she realized that I was not going to be her boyfriend, but I'm the one guy who's 100% behind her, supporting her, pushing her forward. And I know a lot of people in the scientific world, so I kind of say, I'm going to, I've studied your little project here, and yes, this would work. So I'm going to go out and get you your $1 million so you can cure cancer, right? So I call up my friends in Duke, and they go, "Oh yeah, we've heard of this guy. Yeah, but he's nuts." you know, and he came, he did all his research, and he goes, "I studied. He's right, 100%. We could do this. We could cure cancer like that." But he said that guy didn't understand the politics of this. This is a $1 trillion business, and you can't just jeopardize that like that. And he said, "I'm right, you're wrong. You're killing millions of people. Blah 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 blah." And then they kind of stressed him, and then he kind of snapped at one of these conferences, and that was the end of his career. So so I talked to my friends at Duke and my other friends at Columbia and medical school, and some friends who are in what is the government place that runs housing, health and services. Anyway, and they all know this guy, right? And not only is he nuts, but he's a tranny. He dresses up as a woman. I said, well, he stopped dressing up like a woman. He is a woman. He's like, gone through the surgery and everything. And he's quite a nice woman, And he goes, and all these guys I knew who knew him said, drop him like a hot potato. It's not going to turn out well for you. And I said, okay. I couldn't care less. I mean, if I was out the door of that place, no big deal, right? So things are going great, And now Donald Trump, it's coming into end of 15, beginning of 16, right? And Donald comes down the elevator and talks about the Mexicans and the this and the that and blah blah blah. I go, okay, this looks interesting. Anyway, so we're moving forward, and the restaurant's doing great, and we got big crowds. And No Fear Cafe, we do it on a Tuesday and a Thursday, not every day. So you can't kill the old ladies. These old ladies could not do a restaurant for 2 days a week. They could, and they would make somewhere between $200 and $500 each day they did it, right? So they were like ecstatic because they had a restaurant and they didn't have to pay for it, and they were making $200 to $500. They're making like between $600 and $1,200 a week. They were, and they didn't have to pay taxes at church. So so everything is going great, guns, and we're getting grants, and we're getting more people, and we're doing all kinds of great stuff, and people are teaching things in those rooms and daycare, and we're having music and poetry and theater, and it's this is why I did it, and it's my little laboratory with all the different types of people, and I now have real inroads into the political structure, and because it's becoming very advertised, and my buddy is so ecstatic that he's the poster boy, everyone's giving him the credit, but everyone who kind of is in the know, even not the know, I mean, all the people who are ministry folks, the parishioners, they knew what was going on. They weren't dummies, and so they, and I was, Al's great. We're happy to have him, So this was all going great. So this is very strange what goes on. So so Donnie says, I'm running for president, right? And then the guy from the World Workers newspaper visits me and says, hey, I have somebody who's on a lecture tour, and they're from the Ukraine, and they want to talk, and that aircraft was shot down by the Russians, and it was like the Ukraine, even though Russia invaded the Ukraine about a year before, it wasn't really. But when that airplane got shot down, and all the bodies were everywhere, in the Ukraine, well, what's the heck's going on in the Ukraine? And so this guy goes, so these two women who are from the Ukraine are on a lecture tour because they want to warn America about what's going on. So I go, fine, not a problem. And he goes, there were two, one's she's in advertising, and the other one's an artist from New York. But they grew up in the Ukraine. They were under the Russian system. They were both rocket scientists, literally rocket scientists. And but when the curtain fell down, they went off and made money, And one of the rocket scientist girls was like a designer, so she took her designing thing from rocket ships and started making art and selling it in New York and had a gallery, and she was doing very well. The other was a rocket scientist, but she was a psychologist, and she was more into propaganda. So she started an advertising agency in the Ukraine, and when that market opened up, she made a fortune to the EU folk who needed advertising in the Ukraine because it was a gigantic market. And she had connects to Russia, so she had these doorways into that whole Eastern scene. Then what happens? So anyway, that's what he says these girls are. So I said, great, fine. So he goes, so you remember that guy I once brought around here? Yeah, that really didn't smell right. It was just boring and kind of creepy. He goes, yeah. He goes, well, he's their road manager. I said, oh, those poor girls. Anyway, so I decide, and so I make food for Action Tuesday night, right? Leftovers from the cafe. And so I decide to make a real Ukrainian meal. Cabbage soup, blintzes, pierogies, tea. I went down town into this tea store. That's the beauty about Roanoke. It has everything. So I buy some real, so I want some real good red Ukrainian tea, cinnamon, and I got this box that has, a sampler of each, so you could make little pots of tea for them. And I'm thinking about the old crone. Okay, sounds good. I'll take that. And I make them a real, blintzes, pierogi, really good sour cream, cabbage soup, white and red. And I go to this baker lady I know, and she has really great pumpernickel dark bread, great crust. So I get a thing, and then I go get a whole tub of sweet butter and lots of other, horseradish and other seasonings that are Ukrainian. And I make a big soup, and I make all the stuff, and I make the kind of Ukrainian salad. And so these girls, and I get these little sugar Ukrainian cookies, and so from my baker friend, and so they show up, and they look like it's raining really hard, and they look like dead rats, and their little speech is going to be about 7:00, and they show up at around 4. And I go, girls, oh, you look totally whack. So I bring them upstairs, and where the daycare center is, there's a complete bathroom shower, right? And I said, here's some towels, here's some blankets, here's some sheets, some pillows, here's these mattresses his kids sleep on. Take yourself a shower. I'll close the door, put do not disturb. You guys catch a few winks, right? And I had this nice little urn of tea, and it was like sleepy time tea. I said, here. It was like sleepy time tea and some cinnamon, not cinnamon, but a very Ukrainian red tea. And I gave them some of these little sugary cookies. And I also think I gave them a plate of toasted pumpernickel bread with sweet butter, and put it on a little table for them. And they went and so I'm like still cooking dinner, and they come down in about an hour and a half, and they've taken a shower, and they put on new clothes, and they've done their hair and their makeup, and they said that tea was so great, and that black bread was some butter, and just that few. We waited, we drank the tea and had some of the black bread and butter before we went to sleep, but we had more of it when we woke up, and we had those cookies. Wow, that is great. You're such a great guy. Oh, we love you. And I said, not only that, I said, walked him into the dining room, and I had this table with a tablecloth and a silverware and the dishes. And over here on the side table, I had these urns of soups and blintzes. And I said, and I had the little, towel over my thing, and I just kept serving them, serving after serving of all these different things. And they started to cry. I said, oh, you're such, we've had to do. And the other guy who was there he left. He went to the motel room and did whatever he was going to do. But these girls were like, oh man, this is like unbelievable. So we have dinner, and they then tell me their whole story. And I won't tell you their whole story, but up to the point where, so the thing falls, Ukraine is, going towards the EU, and they were part of the government. So they were part of the disarmament talks with, George H. Bush, and when and Bush promised that all of the Russian spheres that they would not move NATO into them. And what did Bill Clinton do but freaking move NATO right on the front doorstep? We put, 1 million soldiers, 11,000 tanks, 6,000 attack aircraft and artillery right on Russia. I mean, right on their frigging border. And what are they supposed to do? So they were, they had Yeltsin, who was a drunk, and the people, the oligarchs who stole all the assets of Russia and became uber rich, and Russia kind of, like this, and Gorbachev basically sold Russia down the river along with the people. Now they did, pretty good for that first 4 years, and they had freedom, but they were starting to have, with Glasnost, they already were starting to have freedom. And then, Billy Boy came in and did this and stole, made contractual, became buddies with the oligarchs. And so the Russian people were starting to have a hard time. And these girls were part of that institutional thing of the rocket scientist crew. And so they were like Russians, but they were, grew up and were Ukrainian. Anyway, so they were seeing everything, what was going on. They had been part of it before, when, Gorbachev was negotiating with Reagan and Bush. And so they knew the story. So then the wall falls. They decide, well, we're going to make sure. One girl goes to New York. The other girl becomes basically an EU real estate / advertising girl. And they both become very well-to-do, and get very focused on their life of making money and this new lifestyle they have. And so the girl who is in Ukraine, she's in, what's the name of that city? Odessa. And Odessa, Ukraine's a place that people have been going in and through for years. The Russians went through it, then the Cossacks went through it, then this group went through it, then the Nazis went through it. And so they were one of these big land masses that was always being conquered. And so when things changed, they had this way to get, our own country and money, and all I had to do was give away their nuclear weapons and disarm, and so these girls were part of all that, and so they went for the gusto of making money, and that was where they focused on their life. So one girl's in New York, So she's not seeing the Ukraine at all. The other girl is in Odessa, which is this city. Like I said, people were always going through, but they never conquered it because the Romans, whoever came through, was right on the Black Sea. Beautiful place, great place to have a vacation. So everyone let Odessa be Odessa. They had a certain level of freedom, economy, etc. And because all the Russians or the Nazis or whoever, they didn't just line people up and shoot them. No, because they like going to the restaurants. They like, hanging out on the beach. So Odessa was always allowed to be Odessa. And so that's why one of the rocket scientist girls stayed there, because she bought a really nice house on the ocean, on the beach, right? And it was close enough to the city she could actually ride her bike. And she bought a like 6-story, beautiful old Russian Gilded Age building that she put her office in and had offices for other businesses. And she was making money off that. And then she bought up lots of neighborhoods that had flats, right? Some that had the Russian flats, but she was redoing them and turning them into condos for Europeans who wanted to be in Odessa. And so she's making some serious bucks. Plus she has her mind-controlled advertising agency. And so she's like focused on, driving her Audi and wearing black leather and, going all around the world, and buying this and doing that and visiting her girlfriend in New York City. And anyway, so she's kind of focused on all that. And 10 years go by, and she starts to notice that because she's in advertising. So she's buying time on, and there used to be just one TV station, right? And then there was 2, and then 3, and then 4. But at a certain point around 98, this presence came in that bought up a ton of newspapers, and the internet was coming in, and there was a ton of servers, right? That was having emails and different platforms. Thing good here, I get knocked off there. Anyway, yep, can't believe we don't have more viewers. Me neither. One. So, this girl, the advertising lady, is watching this whole transformation of the media of the Ukraine. And the Ukraine there were always German people there. So there was the guys in Laudenhosen, and there were always Russian guys, the guys with Kazakh hats. And then there were Ukrainians who were like kind of nationalists, right? And they weren't even Germans, but when the Nazis came in, who weren't Germans, came in, those nationalists really, were like down with the Nazis. And then there was, that was it, those 3 different groups. But when this kind of media platform change of all of this stuff that happened in about 4 years, there were now, she said, there was a channel, and this is before or around when Fox News was coming online. They had this company, this media entity, had a CNN type of thing, an MSNBC kind of thing, a Disney kind of thing, and a Fox kind of thing. And she said that they were all focused around news and news as entertainment. So they, these shows didn't have game shows. They didn't have, but the news was played like it was a game show, It was, a soap opera. It was, and they started building up good guys and villains in each of these different groups. For this group, this guy was a good guy, but for this group, he was a villain. And then, and she said that this media, kind of transformation went from having 3 or 4 stations and about 20 radio stations to having like 40, cable stations, and 100, radio stations in each like market. Before they didn't have markets, but they were all owned. When you went through all the shell companies and all of this, was all owned by a Rothschild subsidiary, right? And within 5 years, this media transformation transformed the politics, and people became tribal. No longer just Ukrainians. I mean, they had the German guys and the Russian guys and the nationalist guys, but now they were tribal, and they were at each other's throats. And that's what gave Ukraine never had, they had a lot of people invade them, but the Ukrainians themselves didn't fight amongst themselves. And they started to do that. And so once once Donald Trump said he was running, they said, well, we better go to America, because if America falls, the rest of the planet is going to end up like this. And that's why they were on their speaking tour. And so before, so this is about, between 4:30 and 6, it was just the girls and me, right? And I kept feeding them, and they were just like loving me and telling me what a great, oh man, can we take you with us? Can we get rid of that sleazeball and you can come with us? And I said, I'd love to. Where are you heading? And they said, we're going to go up to Maine and then work our way down through New England. I said, girls, it's like February, and it's going to be ridiculous. I can't, I'm already now. If you're going to go to Florida, I would jump in your trunk right now. But going up to Maine, not so much. So when they did their lecture, because this girl is the advertising, so she's a filmmaker. So she, what happened when all hell broke loose, and it was like this. This media transformation occurs over 2 or 3 years. Then there's a lot of friction, and then one day it's like somebody lit a match. And Odessa had no crime, no violence, none of this. And out of Verducha on the Black Sea, and she gets on a little bicycle, and she's rolling it out her front yard, and there's a body right on the curb, and she's like, well, I got to get to work. So she has been so, brought online to materialism and, being a rich person. That's what she's thinking about, and seeing the body. Well, she kind of went like, oh yeah, he's dead. Maybe when I get to the office, I'll call somebody. So she rides in, and as she rides in, there's smoke rising from the city. And as she goes deeper and deeper, the bodies everywhere, and the buildings on fire, and it's like, what the heck is going on? And she goes in, and not her building, but the building next to her is on fire, and there is about 20 people in front of that building, and there's about 300 people, trying to lynch that group of people and then get into the building that's on fire, because that building had been turned into a makeshift medical kind of place for one, tribe to be in, and they wanted to kill all those people. Really set it on fire and kill all those people. So she went into her office building and got her video camera and started videotaping it. And she went into the back of the other building, went in and said, come on, everybody out. They're going to come and kill you, and come into my building. And then I have this, from the old days, a tunnel that will take you about 10 blocks away. And then you can get the heck out of Dodge. And so she's videoing everything, and the footage is unfreaking believable. And then she spends the next 2 weeks, when it was like all hell's breaking loose before it kind of settled down, of all of this. And then she made a film, and she brought it to, all the different film things and made awards. But now she was that was part of their lecture. It was about a 30-minute film. They'd show that, and it was like shocking, right? And there were things, guys like getting the gun to the air and boom, blowing the brains out in the whole, and none of this was right. So, I told people that this lecture. I had no idea this was what it was going to be. And about the people who showed up were the usual suspects. The people who were the $15, the black lives matter, all of this. The people who hated Donald Trump, the people who loved this guy, wanted this, wanted that, the Hillary people, and they see this thing, and then the girls tell their story, and then they open it up to questions, and all it is that different people at that thing that I knew all these people. And they start arguing with each other about Black Lives Matter, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, $15. And they don't even realize what these girls just said. And the girls look at me and just go, it's worse than I thought. Then I look over and I see this guy who's got like the Charles Manson eyes, and he's in the kitchen. And I go, well, no one should be in that kitchen. So I go in there, and he's looking through the drawer of knives. And he's looking for the two biggest, sharpest knives he can find. And I go, hey, how you doing? Here, there's some food over here. Have you eaten lately? He goes, no, I haven't eaten anything in a couple of days. I've been just living on the street and I'm really cold. I said, don't worry about it. You can stay here. I said, what? I said, yeah, but come and sit down. And the meeting, and they're all arguing over Clinton and Donnie and $15. And the girls are like, they're in shock. They just sit down and like, right? And so I spoon up some of the borscht and some of the blintzes, and he's like, and then he goes to me, take these knives away from me. And I said, you don't need them? He goes, no, I was going to go kill everyone. I heard a voice in my head to say, go kill everyone, especially those two bitches. I said, how do you feel now? He goes, I don't want to do that now, And he goes, no one's been nice to me. I'm just coming. I've been in Roanoke now 2 weeks, and I've been, I can't even get in the mission. And, I was, a sergeant in the army in Afghanistan, and I kind of broke, and I hit my lieutenant, and I got a dishonorable discharge, and no one's, you're the first person to say a nice thing, to give me a meal, to say that I can sleep here. No, I'm not going to kill everyone. I said, good, not a problem. And I said, so, you want some more food? He goes, yes. I said, here, you can have the rest of the pot of this. And in the fridge, eat anything. And there's a lot of nice bread over there. And here's some cookies. And here's a big thing of tea. Here's something. So he's in there chomping away, eating, and I go back out into the audience. I said, what, are you nuts? Didn't you listen? Didn't you watch that movie? Meaning, because they all know me, and I use my theatrical loud voice that I can like get into people's cerebral cortex. And I said, you guys are nuts. And I go through the group. I know them all personally. I said, how can you like be doing, when you saw that movie, these people are telling us that somebody other than Donald Trump is doing this, and that Donald Trump and Hillary are on the same team to screw with you. And they're like, huh? What? And I kind of made the tried to sell the story. I said, do I need to play that movie again? And and then the people kind of straggled out. I kind of punctured the balloon of their, oh, Donald Trump's terrible. Oh, Donald Trump's great. Oh, lock her up. I mean, people were doing stuff like that. So they left, and I said, girls, I want you to meet somebody. And he came out with a bowl, right? And we sat down, and he tells them their story. And they said, this is what we're talking about. They said, there are probably 1 million of these guys scattered across the United States, living in, burned out buildings and dumpsters, and becoming more and more recluse and angry. And because he then flipped into his logical, smart, intelligent side, and he goes, I'm damaged goods. They screwed in my brain. I mean, I was the sharp point of the spear, and they took me, and I had been deployed 8 times into Afghanistan and Iraq, and each time I would come home. The second time I came home, I lost my wife and my family, and the next times I came back, I was brought into facilities that would tune me up, and they would call it training, advanced training. And he said, there are, I meet a lot of people like me in the woods, and in the cities I try to go and get some support. I meet people just like me at the bus station. And and when I see, I heard that story, and it really brought a lot of anxiety, what they call PTSD, when I saw that woman's film. But when everyone started arguing and couldn't appreciate what she was saying, that's when I I heard the voice, kill them all. And I went into the kitchen looking for the knives. And he said, Hal, if you hadn't come in and were nice to me and fed me, I probably would have killed everyone because I could. I have the training, I don't need a gun. It's so close quarters. It would have been like the slaughter of the lambs. Anyway, and that was, beginning of 2016. So here we are rounding towards 2020. And and that's why I say, kids, there is a window of opportunity. Because if we haven't exploded and killed each other before now, something's stopping that. I mean, there is a better opportunity than letting the hidden hand slaughter the innocents, And what are my 3 rules? Don't get involved, doctor, do no harm. Don't get involved unless you have an exit strategy for getting the innocents out of harm's way. Don't get involved unless you can learn something, right? And that's why I'm involved, because this is a point where I can do all 3, right? And, as a doctor, I'm here to heal the psyche and the social dynamics by not doing, not being a politician or being president or being, a famous guy or a minister. No, by being the pebble in the pond, making that little wave. Talking those ladies into running, because I know they will not be, bought off, They may not win, but, and that's the thing about state legislators. The difference between winning and losing usually is a few hundred votes. And the guy said, well, it's going to cost $60,000 to run your campaign, And I said, no, if these girls put a letter into the newspaper once a week until now in November about how they feel, if these girls go to a different church every week on Wednesday and on Saturday, that's enough votes to win. And the guy was like almost scared. And, I knew this guy, and he goes, Al, why are you doing this? I thought you were one of us. I said, no, I'm me. and I don't like it the way you use all our relations as the other. So it's 2 hours, it's almost 3 hours. So that's tonight's story, and that's where we are. We're right at that same place where the Ukraine was, and where Yugoslavia was. I mean, I shot the 1976 Olympics in Sarajevo. Then about 8 years ago, it tore itself apart. And it wasn't done by the Yugoslavian people. No, those people had been living together for 100 years, for about 4 generations. They were married, the Slavs and the Croats and the Muslims were married into each other's families, They should not have been out to kill each other. But, the powers that shouldn't be and the hidden hand sprinkled some kind of fairy dust on these folks and, sent them at each other. It's the same thing with what happened in Africa when the Hutus and the Tutsis went after each other. And in less than 3 months, they killed 1 million people with machetes. I mean, that's a lot of hacking to kill that many people in that short of a time. And it's not like a gun, to kill somebody with a machete and the other guy can run. That's a lot of energy. So these people were, this is all what a Manchurian candidate. And again, my experience Tuesday, and the guy was in the restaurant talking about aliens and mind control and chemtrails, and I mean he is, I've talked to him enough. He is, a Manchurian candidate, and there are a lot of them out there. And when I was, it was 26 times that John threw me out of here in the middle of the winter. And in January of that winter, it was one of the coldest winters, and I had to sleep in the national forests. But I ran into interesting people, and we had a great time, and I had great adventures. But one of the things I stumbled across were thousands of, Afghani and Iraqi vets that were, deployed, 5, 6, 10 times and broke and then got a dishonorable discharge. So they couldn't get any help. They couldn't get any kind of shrink, any kind of medical anything. And over 120,000 of the soldiers that have been to war in Afghanistan and Iraq in the last 18 years have committed suicide. 3 times more than have died in Vietnam have committed suicide in the United States. And so that is this window of opportunity. We can fix this small little group of the cadre, But you have to start thinking more than, your little life and your job. And, it's time to, if you're going to do anything in your life, make a difference. This is the time to do it, And you don't have to follow anyone's path, I, as your Griot Sensei Al-Bab, I'm not telling you to follow me or worship me or even believe me. Just wake up. Come on. Right? Okay. We got about 15 minutes between now and 3-hour time. So let's do a little guided meditation. So everyone, get in a comfortable place and take that big, and then out 30%. Breathe in 20% and out 30%. And start focusing on that. Relax. Shut the squirrel in your mind up, right? And let it go. I'll be right back. Start breathing. Come on. Get onto it. Relax. Focus on letting go. I'm going to be counting from 1 to 3, and you're going to go into a deeper and deeper state of relaxation. Think clearly. And 1, you're in a deep, 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 deep state of relaxation. Look at the light. Focus your conscious mind on the flashing light. You're letting everything go. And one, you're in a deep, deep, deep state of conscious relaxation. Your conscious mind, the squirrel in your Rolodex, is asleep. Your body, your bag of water, is on automatic pilot. And you have woken up your conscious mind, your ascending conscious mind. See it clearly. You're breathing in the prana into your lungs. Your heart is pumping blood through your lungs and carrying that prana to every cell of your body. It's being grounded into the chi of your body. And our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. As it was in the beginning, is now, ever shall be, world without end. See it clearly. And in every day and every way, you'll take the peace of the earth and you'll make it stronger. And see in front of you right now in the United States how all of these factional things are artificially manifested by the hidden hand. See the powers that shouldn't be, the middle management, the Krupps, the GEs, the Siemens, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Fords. These are just middle management. They don't own anything. When J.P. Morgan died, he only owned 8% of his bank. Mr. Rothschild owned the rest. See it clearly. See it clearly. See how we're being manipulated through the media, through the internet, through social media. See it clearly. Wake up. Take control of your own life. Raise your chi, connect it to your prana, illuminate your cell. See the mitochondria as you have mitosis, the cell separates. See how it spreads up the DNA. That is the vortex of time and space. Go into it now. And through that, you can remote view anything. Right now, I want you to all see how we are being played. Because we are not separate entities, the good, the bad, all the bad hombres. No, we are all our relations. There's only one race, the human race. Right? To try and say that anyone is a terrible, shithole. Love's co-creation is the only truth there is, the only reality. Everything else is an illusion. It's the illusion of the Luciferian incandescence of a lie. See it clearly. See it clearly. See it clearly. Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. I'm showing you the many sides of the spiritual shaman. Just look into my eyes. And Hail Mary, full of grace, Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for our sinners, now and the hour of our death. Amen. And every day take the peace of the earth and make it stronger. Let go of your prejudice. Accept your ability to suspend your disbelief, because nothing is real. If you cannot feel it in your heart, if you cannot have faith in it, it's worthless. Belief is a worthless thing. All a belief is an opinion. And what is an opinion? Everyone has one, just like an asshole. See this space within the DNA, the vortex, that you can go anywhere and remote view. See it clearly. See all of our brothers and sisters who have been oppressed through their military service. See all the people who have been damaged by war. See all the conflict that has been created. I mean, MS-13, we made that through having a war in El Salvador. That war and all those death squads pushed people out, and they came to America. And the youngsters were on the streets of America, and what could they do but petty crime? And with Bill Clinton's explosion of putting people in jail, all of these young people went to jail, which was the university of crime. They learned to be predators. We manufactured them. Then Clinton and then Bush W took those people and brought them back to El Salvador, which was destroyed, in ruins, had no money. But they're right in the middle of Central America and South America and the drug business of cocaine. And so they had been trained, hardened as criminals, as basically militarized criminals. And then when they went to back to their land, their home, they had all this great training of being a sociopath. And so they took over their government. And that's the, MS-13 that we're dealing with now. And that's why the rest of the innocent folk of El Salvador is trying to get the heck out of there. And they're coming to America because they're the people who caused this. And they think that if they come to America, they'll be safe, or at least a lot safer than being in El Salvador or Honduras or Guatemala. And all you have to do is a little homework, and you can see this. Do a little homework about what happened in the Ukraine. Do a little homework on what happened in Sarajevo. Do a little homework about who murdered who with the Hufi and the Tutsi. Do a little homework about Vietnam. What was that about? Tourism, oil, and opium. And why did 1 million people die with pot pollen? How did they die? He tied their hands and feet together and then put a plastic sandwich bag made by Dow Chemical over their heads. And in the hot, Cambodia, these people would expire in about 20 minutes in the most painful suffocation there is. And Dow Chemical took their large sandwich bag and added a little lip to it. So when it was put over the head, this little lip went under the chin, so there was no way you could shake the bag off. And by your sweating, it caused it to hold a seal over your nose and mouth. Thank you, Dow Chemical. Do a little homework on all this, and then use this process I'm showing you right now of remote viewing all of this, and you will get the big picture. I'm going to count from 3, 2, 1. You're back awake. Yeah, Rab, it's annoying because it's attacking your cerebral cortex and really shutting your squirrel and your Rolodex up. It's forcing you. I've been doing guided meditations with you guys now for a year, and that one is like straight out of MK Ultra. I wanted you to see into your DNA. That's kind of soldered a wire in there. So you can now, all of you guys who and if you watch this, months from now, it'll still do the soldering job of giving you a light switch to be able to remote view anything, and that you will not be able to be fooled. And why are you annoyed? It's because I'm waking you up. Waking you up. Because, gang, I'm telling you, we got this window of opportunity. And if it closes, we'll probably be in another 1,000 years of a dark age. Because I'm a student of history. We've had many dark ages. And go look at the most recent dark age and see if you want to live in that one. Go look at a movie called Zardos that was made in the 70s with Sean Connery. And that's basically kind of what we're staring at, So go take a look at that. Go look at all the movies Sean Connery made in the 70s. When he said, "Hey, I'm going to stop being 007 because I don't want to get typecast." And, The Man Who Would Be King, Time Bandits, Everything You Know Is Wrong, and Zardos, and about 4 or 5 other really interesting films. And go look at those. Yeah, the seizure is part of the experience. Well, I don't think I'll do that again unless things get desperate. But it'll be there on the channel, and you guys can go. Hey, you should go to this show, whatever I called it tonight. And that's the beauty of the YouTube. All these shows are up there still. And I constantly say, guys, please go to my channel and download all of these shows on thumb drive, CD-ROMs, your hard drive, because who knows how long the powers that be. I have the sense that, if they really wanted, they would have, I've got, like I said, more than 600 shows up there. So, yes, they're limiting the audience, but it's still there. Now, if you guys told your friends, hey, you got to go watch this guy. You got to go, subscribe to his channel. You need you need to go find 10 of your friends and tell them to watch it. And if they like it, they should get 10 of their friends to watch this and subscribe. And all those people, there's like 40,000 people now watching these things, but not subscribing or chatting, or, they're just kind of watching. Now, a lot of them contact me on the Gmail, and anybody who wants to talk to me can get a hold of me at thedudeawake42@gmail, right? And a lot of people comment on my xratted.blogspot.com. So, yep. Oh, look at that. Oh, that is great. I'm going to go in about 10 seconds because it's 3 hours, 3 minutes, and we're coming on to 33 seconds. When we hit 33 seconds, I'm going to go to bed because it is now 10:30 and I feel like going to sleep. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Yeah, well, that's, Penelope, you are an adept sensitive, So, you are right on the edge of being really awake, and that's, of course the headache is there because the powers are being shut up. Don't think about anything. Don't, go back to sleep, So I hope you're all well, and I hope I gave you something to think about this evening. And remember, don't believe anything I say. This is just entertainment. It's Hollywood. Da, 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 Hollywood. And you know what the Hollywood is? You know that every magic wand is made from the Hollywood. Okay, gang. Yep, 3 hours. It's time to go to sleep. Good night. Good night. Sweet dreams. See you tomorrow. Get more people to subscribe.